Her heart is doing the absolute most. Why, she barely breathes out, trapped between his hard chest and the freezing cold glass. Because, he murmurs, his lips brushing her ear, you can't see your enemy coming in total darkness. His golden eyes are literally glowing. Not that you could escape from here anyway. She tries to shove him off, needing some space, like right now. What is that supposed to mean? It's exactly what you think, he says, his voice dropping low. Listen, I heard a crazy story 3 days ago, but it's a long one. I'll let you get settled first. He turns to walk out, but she's like, no. She calls out, wait, just tell me now. If it's serious, she needs the T-stat. He stops and turns back, his whole vibe shifting to dead serious. There's a ghost in this mansion. A literal chill just zaps down Lissa's spine. She's frozen solid and all the color drains from her face. A ghost, she stammers. What are you even talking about? Like, how did she even get here? Let's rewind. Picture this, our girl with hair like fire fighting her way through a frozen hellscape with just a dinky little suitcase. The horse that was supposed to be her ride totally ditched her after a few hours on the trail. Just straight up said, I'm out, and left her in the dust. Or, well, snow. So there she is, completely stranded and forced to trek through the endless whipping snow all by herself. Just when she's about to give up, she sees this massive kind of creepy mansion just looming in the distance. She's finally made it. But as she gets closer, her heart does a full-on gymnastics routine. She spots a dark figure in a window, their eyes locked right on her. She just knows it's him. She steps inside the grand empty hall, and a deep voice cuts through the silence calling her name. Lynthia. She looks up to see this total smoke show of a guy with jet black hair and intense golden eyes that look just like a cat's descending the staircase like some dark prince. He glides toward her, his gaze never leaving hers, and she feels this major wave of anxiety. There was a rule, some lame protocol for how they were supposed to greet each other. The deal was to use their full names, and this guy, he's on it. He walks right up to her and says her full name, Lysatha Helinire del Arman. Taran Cartis, she replies, her voice a little shaky. She is not vibing with this dude's energy at all. A small knowing smirk plays on his lips like he just won some secret game. That's me. I'm glad you arrived safely, Lyssa. She stays quiet, her eyes carefully taking in every detail about him. Her mind flashes back to the nightmare she went through to get here, and she knows it's way too early to feel safe. This guy, Taran Cartis, is the last link in her complicated escape plan. She notices he's leading her to the very last room on the second floor. And it hits her. It's the exact same room where she saw him watching her. He looks her over and says, you were supposed to ride the horse the previous broker provided, totally clocking how wrecked she looks. He can tell there's no way she just fell off. Lyssa explains how the horse just stopped, and then straight up abandoned her. Taran's expression darkens. It must have been because of them. The horse smelled them, he says. Them. Lyssa echoes, completely lost. The wolves, Taran clarifies. Your horse must have sensed the pack that roams this territory. Our girl is completely shook. She literally can't process that she walked right by a wolf den. But Taran corrects her. Probably not a den, but trust me, this whole area is crawling with them. She's physically trembling now, a chaotic mix of terror and anger. He gives her this strange, penetrating look. You're lucky. You got lucky 2 months ago as well, right? Lyssa is furious. Is he for real trivializing everything she went through after she survived a living nightmare? He has the audacity to call it luck. Oh, it is so on. But Taran just flashes this stupidly hot smirk, totally dodging her question, and telling her to chill in the new room while he whips up some food. Oh, she is so done thinking she literally hired the worst possible guy for this. It's like Taran's whole mission is to crank her anxiety up to 11. And that hug from before? Seriously, what was that about? Lyssa sighs, 100% convinced this dude is just getting a kick out of messing with her. Later, Taran brings out dinner, and he's still calling her Lysathia with this super sarcastic vibe. The food is an actual tragedy, it's basic. There's barely anything there. And not gonna lie, it looks kinda burnt. Lyssa just stares at the plate, feeling her soul leave her body. The girl she was before would have been so disgusted by this. But the last 2 months on the run have been a major reality check, and her whole world has flipped. She picks up her fork, reminding herself that just not dying is the main goal here. That's the entire reason she's paying Taran. So she can't exactly be a picky eater right now. Before she can even take a bite, she feels his eyes burning into her. It's so intense she has to be like, do you need something? Taran's just studying her, trying to solve the puzzle of her, and says that seeing her this close, she's got this majorly high-class vibe that's impossible to ignore. Wiping her mouth perfectly, she tells him that's literally the entire problem. Lysatha Helinire del Arman, the absolute queen of the elite, the Scarlet Maiden, with hair that's basically more famous than she is. Even random people on the street knew my name, she says. You have no idea how many times I was almost busted because of it. She has a flashback of running for her life, hearing guys in masks yelling to find the redhead. Taran's just like, you could have just dropped the fancy name, you know. But Lyssa says it's not that simple. Her whole face gets serious as she explains that being Prince Jade's fiancé made her feel like a total VIP. She never in a million years thought she'd get caught up in a revolution. She sighs, thinking she was probably just a huge headache for her parents anyway. Taran gives her this sly, knowing smirk, then casually asks how her parents and the prince are doing these days. The question hits her like a physical blow, and her expression just shatters. She's instantly thrown back to the memory of her family and fiancé, all of them gone lost in the chaos. She's completely grossed out and furious. "What is this, an interrogation?" she snaps. Taran just smiles, saying he's curious. "Why? Why do you care? I'm just a paycheck to you. Besides, I'm out of your hair in a few days anyway." Lysa fires back, her voice dripping with annoyance. "So," Taran presses on, "you risked it all crossing the frozen plains just to make it to this port." "All to bounce from the kingdom?" he asks, like he doesn't already know the answer. She just nods. A wicked little smile plays on his lips as he tells her there's one tiny massive problem with her plan, the ocean. He explains that this winter has been insane, and the sea is literally starting to turn to ice. He figures in about 3 days not a single ship will be able to get out. Hearing this, Lysa's heart plummets into her stomach. Lysa is like, "If you're being for real, then we can't just be sitting here talking." She shoots to her feet in full-blown panic mode and says they have to get to the port like right now. He's so freaking calm when he tells her that's a no-go. Thanks to her little stunt, they're down to just one horse. And let's be real, she'd get hopelessly lost without him. Plus, if 2 people tried to ride one horse, they'd make the poor thing keel over from exhaustion before they even got close. And walking a 3-day journey? That's certifiably insane. Feeling totally cornered, she asks if they can just get another horse. Maybe from an inn or something. Taran, still casually eating, breaks it down for her. The closest inn is a 2-day round trip. Then it's another 3 days to the port. That's 5 days. And in 5 days, there is a 0% chance she's getting on any ship. He sarcastically adds that she could always give walking on the ice a shot, but sneaking onto a boat is completely off the table. Lysa clenches her fists so tight her knuckles go white. She can't believe this is happening after everything she survived. She finally snaps, screaming at Taran for not telling her any of this sooner. She yells that she could have at least tried to get her horse back if she'd known what was up. Taran, looking like he's bored out of his mind, points out that in a legit blizzard that would have been completely impossible. "Besides," he adds, "you kinda screwed me over too. And I haven't even told you the really bad news yet." Defeated Lysa just slumps onto the table and asks, "What could possibly be worse than the entire ocean freezing? Did they call off the whole cleansing thing?" She honestly can't think of anything that could top her only escape route disappearing, which was supposed to be her one safe bet. Taran's voice shifts, then all the sarcasm gone. "Actually, it's the opposite. The leaders of the revolt found a much more efficient way to keep their cleansing going. They hired a specialist, an expert at hunting people like you. Phantom is officially on the revolution's payroll." As Taran's words hit her, ice floods her veins. She can feel the terror creeping up her throat. Phantom. The name is legendary, the baddest and most feared assassin in the entire kingdom. Lysa remembers hearing a story one time about how next-level brutal Phantom was. Some dude hired him and just wanted a single finger as proof of the kill, and Phantom delivered it complete with the ring in a fancy little leather box. That story, mixed with the horrifying thought that this monster is now hunting her, makes her want to puke. As she's fighting it down, Taran deadpans, "What's the matter? Lost your appetite?" Lysia is so bugging out, she's like, "Yeah, my stomach just did a backflip, I'm not eating." Taran clutches his chest like he's been shot, saying that's a low blow for a chef. And this whole Phantom Hitman story is probably just some internet creepypasta. Still shook, Lysatha is all, "Okay, I'm just gonna go be terrified in my room now." Taran gives her some serious side-eye. "Aight, go on then, suit yourself." He adds, "But don't come crying to me for a midnight snack when your stomach starts growling." She gets all salty and claps back, "Don't flatter yourself, I wouldn't ask you for a glass of water." Just as she's about to dip, Taran drops, "Oh, P.S. my room is right next door." And bam! Girl freezes mid-step. You could hear a pin drop for like 5 solid seconds. Seeing her totally shook, Taran smirks. "It's for your protection, Avi. If this so-called hitman shows I got you." Lysa fires back with maximum sarcasm. "Wow, my hero. I feel so much safer knowing you're concerned about my well-being." He closes the distance between them, his voice dropping to a low key. "For real though, jokes aside, you'll be fine tonight. Just don't go inviting any drama." And just like that, the whole vibe between them changes. Taran breaks the tension with a light laugh. "Honestly, I just really hope you don't wake me up. Seriously. It's been forever since I actually slept through the night." And Lysia whispers a promise that she won't. Lysa gives Taran a quick scan, and whoa, okay, the guy is seriously built. Like, he's so fit, she's pretty sure he knows how to throw down. Low-key, she thinks she'd feel crazy safe with him watching her back. But then her brain is like, if he turned on her, she'd be totally wrecked. Lysa takes a step back, creating some space, and asks, "Hey, you got a map or something I can use?" Taran just nods. "Yup, it's over there on the table, go for it." Her mind is already in full-on escape room mode, thinking if the port is a no-go, she needs a plan B. That's when her eyes catch something weird in the corner of the map. These tiny sus red stains. Lysatha's brain goes, "Okay, what is that? Is it spilled wine? Or is that blood?" She shakes her head, trying to just delete that thought immediately. She tells herself he'd have just spilled some marinara on it while cooking. She snatches the map and heads for her room, but Taran is right on her heels, asking if she's sure she doesn't want to hear. The tea about the ghost that's supposed to be haunting this place. Lysa's like hard pass, 100% sure he's just trying to troll her. Cut to later, Lysatha's dead asleep in her room, when these creepy whispery moans start creeping into the silence. The sounds start mixing with the crackle of the fireplace, then the whispers turn into full-on blood-curdling screams. Our girl's eyes snap open and she is completely lost. She's thinking, what the heck was that? Is that just the wind being extra? But nope, that sounds way too much like someone is actually bawling their eyes out. Like there's someone else here. Taran's words hit her and her stomach drops. Was he for real? Is that the ghost he was talking about? Lissa, making the #1 mistake in every horror movie, decides she has to investigate. Even though she's scared out of her mind, she peeks out of her room. Like girl, no rule 1 of surviving. You do not go toward the scary sound when you're by yourself. She's staring down this super dark hallway with just a little moonlight, and the creepy crying just keeps echoing everywhere. Okay, now Lysatha is officially losing it. Because she sees the hallway is totally empty, but the screaming is still going. She practically sprints to Taran's door, and with her voice all shaky whispers, "Taran, you awake?" Nothing but crickets. So she knocks, then tries the doorknob, but it's locked solid. Then she remembers what he said about not waking him up, and it clicks. He must have locked it so she couldn't bother him. Still totally freaked, Lissa runs back to her room and dives under the covers like a little kid. But even with a pillow over her head and her hands clamped on her ears, she can still hear it. The wailing and screaming just won't stop. It goes on all night long, and by sunrise, Lysatha is completely convinced they are not alone in this mansion. She tries to sleep, but it's useless. The non-stop crying keeps yanking her out of any sleep she might find. The next morning, she looks like an extra from The Walking Dead. Taran's serving breakfast and is immediately like, "Whoa, you look wrecked." She just cuts to the chase. "Okay, is there someone else here, like another guest hiding out or something?" Taran looks kinda offended and tells her no, it's just them. A good broker has to be discreet after all. Then his face breaks into this huge knowing grin as he leans in close. "Or maybe you finally met the ghost," he whispers, getting way into her personal bubble. She shoves him back, snapping, "Ghosts aren't real, stop being such a child." Taran just shrugs all casual. "Hey, I'm just saying the odds of a haunting here are like crazy high. This place used to belong to a dude who was moving some serious product." He continues explaining that like 100 years ago, the whole mansion was owned by a dealer they called the Kingpin. And this Kingpin dude threw these insane endless parties until one night a rival crew came and permanently canceled him. After that, the place was totally abandoned. And that, he says, is the story I was going to tell you. Taran finishes hands on his hips with this smug little smirk. Licia is giving him a death glare. He chuckles. "Look, all I'm saying is, with a history this shady, it's not a stretch to think 1 or 2 ghosts might have stuck around." Looking completely over it, Lysatha shoots back, "Yeah, maybe if ghosts were an actual thing that existed." Taran crosses his arms, looking cocky AF, and goes, "Wanna bet?" Lysatha raises an eyebrow. "Seriously, a bet? Aren't we a little old for that?" But his eyes are literally sparkling with mischief as he lays down the challenge. Taran went full psycho and bet his entire paycheck on it. Lysatha was literally shaking. He was like, "Yep, you heard me. I'm calling it. This mansion is haunted AF, and if I'm wrong, you don't owe me a dime." Lysatha, trying to play it cool but secretly shook, was like, "Dude, you got a gambling addiction or what? Risking his whole bag like that." But my man Taran, not even a flicker of doubt on his face. He just leans in and asks what's in it for him when he proves the ghost is real. "It's easy. You pay me what we agreed, plus a little something extra for my trouble." Lysatha bats her eyelashes all, "But that's literally all my money." She's getting sus, thinking it's way sketchy for him to go all in like this. Taran, sensing her spidey senses tingling, tries to calm her down. He's like, "Hey, just making things interesting since this blizzard has us on lockdown." Lysatha pauses for like 2 seconds, then agrees. She's so sure she's got this in the bag. I mean, hello, ghosts are for movies. Taran sticks his hand out to make it official, saying the bet's on until they can finally bounce from this creepy place. She goes to shake but totally hesitates. So he just grabs her hand and gives it this super firm shake. Whoa! Lysatha is stunned by his grip. A blush creeps up her neck and her brain short-circuits. And bam, that night, the freaky screams and moans are back. Lysatha's in bed, literally vibrating with fear, but she's telling herself it's not a ghost. It's gotta be Taran pulling some scam to win their bet. She is so not here for this drama. She gets up totally ready to go give him a piece of her mind. But then this massive bang echoes through the halls for a few seconds, and just like that, the creepy noises die and all she hears are footsteps. She creeps over to the door to spy, pressing her ear against it, and the footsteps get freakishly loud. An ice-cold wave of panic washes over her. What if it's the actual ghost? She dives for her bag, frantically digging until her fingers find the cold steel of a small pistol. She's trembling but grips the piece tight, tiptoeing back to the door. The footsteps stop, and then she hears the door to the next room slowly creak open. Oh, hell no. She bursts out into the hallway, pointing the heater right where the sound came from. And who does she see? A super surprised Taran holding a lantern, looking like he just saw a ghost himself. But then the dude starts cracking up, asking what in the world she's doing and where she got a toy like that. Mortified, she stammers something about thinking he was a burglar. Taran's just like, "I was just going back to my room." After doing a sweep of the house. Seeing her looking like she's about to hyperventilate, Taran asks if she's freaked out about being followed. Her face is still 50 shades of red. She mumbles that you can't be too careful, especially with her situation. Taran gets real quiet for a sec. He gently takes the piece from her hand and starts taking the bullets out. He tells her, "Next time you think there's a bad guy, don't just run out Rambo style." He explains it was a seriously dumb move, that she was basically a sitting duck. The smart play, he says, is to wait by the door and ambush them. She snatches her gun back, all offended, and says she only did it because she thought the bad guy was about to get him. Totally insulted. Lysatha starts stomping back to her room, sarcastically apologizing for caring. But then he grabs her arm, and she just freezes. In this low, intense voice, he asks if she's scared of the ghost. She doesn't even hesitate, just admits that she is. He gets closer, and Taran suggests, "Well, if you're that scared, you could just stay in my room with me tonight." She is completely speechless. Her mind flashes to all the thirsty dudes who've tried to hit on her, all with that same hungry look in their eyes. But Taran's eyes, they're different. It makes her wonder what he's really after. Still, she's not about to let her curiosity take over. She shuts him down, spins around, and bolts back to her room. Lysatha slams the door and is kinda shocked to hear Taran's footsteps just walk away. He didn't even push it. It makes her think, like, was he actually just trying to be nice? No weird stuff intended. Even so, our girl knows she made the right choice by telling him no. She gets back in bed trying to sleep, but the blizzard outside is a total monster. Even with the windows closed, a freezing wind is getting in. Lysatha can't stop shivering. And then the thought hits her, if she'd said yes, she could be using his body heat to stay warm right now. Oh, maybe it was just the loneliness talking. Overwhelmed by all the feels, she finally passes out. The next day after lunch, Lysatha is still feeling it. She's still salty about last night and decides she's gonna find her own answers instead of trusting some dude who just pieced out. So she starts exploring the mansion, heading for the 3rd floor. She remembers Taran telling her the 3rd floor was kinda interesting. Thinking back, she decides he's not a total jerk. But he's definitely not Prince Charming. At first, he seems so straightforward, but now she's 100% sure he's keeping secrets. And as she gets to the 3rd floor, this mansion is so extra it actually snapped Lysatha out of her Taran daydream. For real, she figured this place in its prime must have been as bougie as her family's old life. The 3rd floor is a total maze, and Lysia's basically just wandering around until she randomly finds this cute little library in the west wing. She trips over nothing and knocks a book on the floor. Getting curious, she picks it up and sees it's all about medicinal herbs. Lysatha's like, "Bet, I'll save this for when I'm bored out of my skull." With the book in hand, she keeps exploring and finds a room on the east side. The second she pushes the door open, Lysatha has a full-on panic attack, seeing her own reflection shattered into like a million tiny pieces in a room of broken mirrors. The shock literally makes her stumble back, and she's just standing there like, who in their right mind keeps a room full of busted mirrors? That's like a bajillion years of bad luck. Getting a seriously creepy vibe, she nopes right out of there and heads to the last room on the east side. And what she finds inside is even more twisted than the mirror room. No matter how much gossip she'd heard about the weird tastes of some rich folks, she never in a million years expected to find a literal torture chamber. As she makes a mental note to never ever step foot in here again, a loud scraping sound just rips through the silence, putting her on high-key alert. She freaks and looks at the floor, wondering if that noise for real just came from downstairs. It's only when something starts clawing at the floorboards right under her feet that pure terror floods her system. Without even thinking, she bolts from that room like her life actually depends on it. Taran, just passing by on the 2nd floor, sees Lysia flying down the stairs. The second she sees him, this huge wave of relief hits her and she calls his name, basically launching herself into his arms. He's totally caught off guard, but with a super concerned look, he wraps her up in a protective hug. He tries to calm her down, asking her to tell him what's going on. With tears welling up, she tells him she's 100% positive there's someone else in this mansion. She breaks down what happened about the scratching noises coming from under the 3rd floor. With this steady, serious expression, he tries to soothe her, saying it's only the two of them living here. But what she went through felt way too real, and she doubles down that someone else is here. No cap. In this low-key, sarcastic tone, Taran's like, well, if that's the case, it must be a ghost. Lysa gets so mad and raising her voice snaps that the sounds were obviously human. Taran just insists she's tripping, suggesting it could have just been the wind. He says that during snowstorms the wind can sound like women screaming or whatever. But it wasn't the wind, Lysatha says a little calmer as she shakes her head. Taran tells her that when he makes his rounds, the mansion is always dead silent, and that he's never heard any screaming or crying. Lysa bites her lip, her mind racing, still unable to accept that what she heard wasn't real. Taran gets closer, putting his hand on her forehead like he's checking for a fever, and asking if she's feeling okay. So sure of what she experienced, Lysatha just smacks Taran's hand away. She spins around and starts to run as a worried Taran follows, calling after her, asking what's wrong. All she yells back is for him to just leave her alone. Lysa reaches her room and slams the door. Lying on her bed, trembling, she wonders why he can't hear the screams and the crying she hears at night. Am I losing my mind? Maybe this is all just a messed up dream, Lysatha thinks. Then a deep man's voice cuts in. If you want to live, you'll be a good girl and do as you're told, Lady Lysatha. The scene flips to some creep getting way too close, totally in her personal space. She recoils, shoving him hard and telling him to get lost, but the guy just pulls a knife and tells her to play nice. His breathing is all heavy as she freezes, and he makes some nasty comment about her being some high and mighty lady. Look at you now. Don't forget this is the power of the revolution. The guy says with zero chill, as Lysatha's eyes fill with tears. Thinking he's won, the man starts to lean in closer. A split second later, a loud bang rips through the room, followed by the thud of something heavy hitting the bed. Lysatha's ragged breaths are choked with sobs, and her trembling hand, now stained red, is clutching a revolver. In a raw moment of just trying to survive, Lysatha actually capped the man who was trying to hurt her. The second she realizes what she did, she scrambles off the bed and bolts. Then she just runs a desperate sprint into the dead of night. After running for what feels like forever, she stops totally gassed, only to hear footsteps closing in. Phantom! The name flashes in her mind, filling her with dread. The thought of him right on her tail sends a new jolt of panic through her, and she starts running again. And then she sees it, the mansion. Once inside, Lysatha runs straight to Taran's room, frantically pounding on the door, begging him to let her in. Her eyes catch the image of a man in one of the mansion's windows, the same silhouette she saw the day she first got here. A super creepy version of Taran flashes this twisted grin, saying, "Well, look what the cat dragged in." The phantom has finally found her way home. Terrified, she begs him to help her. "This is your destiny," the figure whispers as its form warps into the real Taran. With a huge, almost plastic-looking smile stretched across his face, Taran just turns his back on her. Crying, she desperately pleads with him not to go. Sitting on the floor, slumped against Taran's door, as the cold snow drifts down, Lysatha just stares at nothing, her expression hollow and heartbroken, pretty much giving up on Taran ever being her hero. Okay, so picture this, a total whiteout blizzard. Out of the swirling snow, two tiny glowing yellow dots appear, moving straight for Lysatha. As they get closer, a terrifying thought hits her. Their eyes. The eyes of a starving wild wolf. The second she realizes it's hunting her, she bolts. But the wolf is way faster, sinking its teeth into the hem of her dress and yanking her right off her feet. She hits the ground hard as it starts dragging her backward, a low, terrifying growl rumbling in its chest. Lysatha is completely paralyzed with fear, just staring at the beast. All she can do is let out a desperate, blood-curdling scream for help, hoping anyone can hear her over the howling wind. And then out of nowhere, bam! A gunshot explodes through the frozen air, and the wolf takes a direct hit, collapsing in a heap and finally letting go of her dress. A figure emerges from the storm, and of course it's Taran. His gaze is so intense, like he's staring straight into her soul, his golden eyes practically glowing against the snow. He's got this look on his face, not quite angry, but definitely not soft. It's just this insane, unwavering focus on her. "You were trying to leave, weren't you?" he asks, his voice cutting through the silence. She opens her mouth to answer, but as the adrenaline fades, the sheer exhaustion and biting cold hit her like a truck, and her world just goes black. Taran lets out this super annoyed sigh before effortlessly scooping her into his arms. But hold up, let's rewind. How did our girl end up as wolf bait in the first place? It all started with another one of her messed up nightmares. The sound of rushing water was screaming in her ears, her vision a blurry mess, convinced Taran was just gonna leave her to die. That fear jolted her awake, hyperventilating and shivering, but also drenched in sweat. She stumbles out of bed, desperate for the warmth of the fireplace. Her clothes are soaked, so she peels them off. As the heat finally starts to feel good, her eyes drift around the room, taking it all in. That's when she spots a small bowl of water with a washcloth, and her heart just drops. OMG, was Taran in here while she was asleep? He probably saw me completely losing it, she whispers, totally mortified. But before she can even process the cringe, a terrifying scream from outside shatters the silence. Lyssa is instantly on high alert, scrambling to lock the door. It sounded human, which is like a million times scarier. The scream triggers all her past trauma, and she knows she can't stay there another minute, or she's going to have a full-on breakdown. She remembers Taran offering to let her stay with him, but she shoves the thought away. I mean, she can't get a 100% read on him, and a respectable girl wouldn't do that, right? So she comes up with the absolute worst plan in history: run away. At night, during a blizzard. She tries to saddle the horse, but it completely spazzes, bucking her away. So walking it is. She figures getting bucked off would be way worse than facing the storm on her own 2 feet. She pulls out a map, planning a route to the nearest inn. She's convinced the brutal journey will be worth it to save some money and finally get some sleep. At least that's what she tells herself as she trudges across the frozen fields for what feels like an eternity. Distracted for just a second, she trips hard over a rock, completely wiping out. As she goes down, the lantern flies from her hand, the oil spills, and poof, her only light is gone. And that's when she sees them back where our story started. 2 tiny yellow dots moving toward her through the swirling snow. Which brings us back to now. Lyssa wakes up and she's not in the snow. She's in a cave, cradled gently in Taran's arms. He's holding her so close it's kinda nice. He looks down at her with this soft, almost teasing smile. "Sleep well?" he asks. As the memories of the wolf and his epic rescue come flooding back, she finally gets her bearings. "Why are you holding me so close?" she asks, suddenly aware of their situation. "I mean, since they're both, you know." Then it all hits her full force, the running, the attack, Taran's piercing golden eyes saving her. She opens her mouth to thank him, but a violent coughing fit takes over instead. "Sorry," She gasps, totally breathless, but the awful cough just keeps racking her body, leaving her completely drained. A worried look crosses Taran's face as he asks if she's still cold. He rummages through his pack and pulls out a flask. Here, drink this, he says, promising it'll help. After everything, she is low-key starting to trust him, so she just takes it and drinks without a second thought. The strong burning taste makes her immediately cringe. Oh my god, this is straight-up liquor, she chokes out, completely stunned. Taran just gets this little smirk on his face. But it stopped the coughing, didn't it? He asks. Seriously, she complains. Who gives alcohol to a sick person? OMG, Lysa is totally mesmerized watching the way Taran's throat moves as he drinks. When a single drop of water traces a path down his neck, he closes the distance between them and wraps his arms around her from behind. His voice is a low rumble when he asks why she dipped, wondering if running into a literal blizzard meant she was giving up. Her whole vibe changes as she tells him. I was literally losing my mind back there, she confesses. I ran because I wanted to live. He just stares totally intrigued and then deadpans. For real though, did you actually see a ghost? She lets out this massive sigh so over the ghost thing and is like, it was nothing like that. It was a super messed up nightmare about her past. And as she's finally saying it out loud, she realizes that even after all this insanity, being held in Taran's arms feels so safe, so... Right. He gets this curious look and pushes a little, asking if the nightmare was about what went down in the capital. And she's just like, yeah. She turns, looks him dead in the eye, and starts to spill all the tea about losing her family and her fiancé in the revolution. I had to go on the run, but my luck is straight up trash, so I got captured by the revolutionary leader's son. That creep tried to force me into something I would never ever do. The deal was he'd let me live, but in return he'd own me, like I'd be his property for life. After Lysatha drops that nuke, the silence in the cave is like deafening. Taran finally breaks the tension, his voice all heavy with something. But then she totally shocks him. Nah, thankfully that creep didn't get what he wanted. Because when he tried to cross the line, I fought back, and I shot him. Taran is legit floored. Lysatha was the one who took out Bran, the leader's son, when she confirms it. That it was really her, he just explodes with laughter. Like, completely loses it. His reaction has Lysatha asking if he thinks she's capping. Wiping tears from his eyes, he's like, no, I 100% believe you. It's just, the fact that it was you is insane. She's so confused. Why, I thought everyone knew it was me. Taran, still trying to catch his breath, is like, not even close. He tells her everyone assumed it was a professional hitman. Then his whole expression just softens. And Taran tells her to never ever call herself guilty. It was self-defense, period. He pulls her in even tighter, promising that no one could ever blame her for doing what she had to do to survive. Lysa is just shook by his words, by the way he's holding her. She feels so seen and for the first time actually safe. Still, she has to ask, why are you being so good to me, Taran? Cracks this little smirk and tries to play it cool. Let's just call it a new strategy. After all, he's not about to let his investment in her go down the drain. So why didn't you just come to my room, Lysa? Taran asks, his tone a mix of genuine confusion and low-key saltiness. I left the door unlocked for you. Seriously, way safer than a blizzard crawling with wolves. She just stays quiet because the real reason is way too complicated. She couldn't stand for him to see her so broken, so vulnerable. If he saw her shaking with fear, she was sure he'd just think she was pathetic. But the worst part? The thought of him ditching her just like in the nightmare was a million times scarier. Looking away, Lysa finally admits, I was afraid that you wouldn't help me even if I was dying. Taran looks legit surprised and asks why on earth she'd think that. She spells it out for him, their whole deal is just business. He gets paid whether she lives or dies, so she figured he'd have zero reason to save her. He stares right into her soul and asks, but did I leave you to die if I was only in it for the money? Do you honestly think I would have risked my own neck chasing you into a blizzard and fighting a wolf pack for you? Or be sitting in this freezing cave just to keep you warm? Is that really the kind of guy you think I am? Taran asks, and she can hear the hurt in his voice. Someone who'd just loot your corpse and run. But I mean, let's be real, his sarcastic vibe when they first met wasn't exactly giving off trustworthy savior energy. Be straight with me, Lysatha. He demands, his gaze super intense. What do you actually want from me? She's a total flustered mess and can't even think, so she just blurts out the one thing her heart is screaming. For you to stay with me. And hearing that this slow, victorious smirk spreads across his face, he scoots even closer and pulls her flush against his body. In a low, steady voice, he promises, I'll stay with you. So just don't run away again, okay? I was seriously freaking out when I found your room empty. He admits it, his voice cracking with actual emotion. I'm sorry, Lysa whispers, totally thrown by him being so vulnerable. And then it finally clicks. He was always checking on her. Back at the mansion, and he literally put his life on the line to save her. With this playful but super sincere vibe, he promises he'll find a way to banish your nightmares for good so today never happens again and you can finally just breathe. Blushing like crazy, she promises she won't run again, but then quietly admits that I can't promise the nightmares are gone for good. Then he hits her with this total player smirk, asking if she wants him to help her overwrite all that bad data. Lisa's intrigued, firing back. And how exactly are you planning to do that? Like this, he whispers, leaning in crazy slow and planting this super soft kiss on her neck that makes her face catch fire. He doesn't stop kissing her neck and shoulder, and she's just a mess of shivers, half from shock and half from being flustered AF. Her face is basically a tomato as she starts connecting the dots, asking all nervously, "When you say make new memories, you're talking about..." Taran just smirks, giving her a look. That's 100% trouble mixed with a whole lot of riz. He teases her. "Am I not making myself clear? Just say the word and I'll bounce." His voice a low rumble as he hovers over her, their eyes totally locked. "For real? I'll respect the boundary if you're not feeling it." Then this chill smile spreads across his face, trying to kill the tension. "It's just I'd really hate to get, zapped." She just stares at him, completely thrown by that. But low-key, she can't even pretend to be cool about it. Her heart is going absolutely nuts the closer he gets. He's just watching her all quiet while her brain is basically blue screening, trying to decide if she should shut this down. But no cap, she feels so safe and warm with him, and his touch is sending literal electricity down her spine. Plus, Lysatha isn't freaking out or anything. Taran slowly leans in, pulling her in tight, and just crashing his lips onto hers for this mind-blowing intense kiss. They're locked like that for a solid minute, and it's like someone hit the mute button on the entire world. At first, the kiss is legit sweet, but then it gets way deeper, so intense it makes Lysatha's heart pound like a drum solo. With every single touch and every breath they share, she feels herself catching major feels for him, like for real. She's just completely lost in this unspoken need for him to keep going. When they finally pull away for air, Lisa has to ask if he had some other angle to all this. Taran just leans in to kiss her again, his expression dead serious, and says he just wants to make her bad dreams go away. He adds with total confidence that bonus, if her nightmares are gone, she won't have a reason to dip, and maybe the real danger is that she'll start dreaming about him and never want to wake up. His words have her completely shook. She's just staring at him like, where does this guy get the audacity to be this smooth? She's totally fascinated by the whole vibe he's giving off with every word and move. But then she actually gives him a once-over. His face, his build, and blushes, realizing a guy that fine has every right to be that cocky. She just keeps staring, blushing, and totally mesmerized. He catches her checking him out like that, and his brow furrows a little like a light bulb just went off, and he asks super curious, "Hold up, is this your first time?" Her cheeks go nuclear, and she gives this tiny shy nod, admitting it is. Taran's whole vibe shifts for a sec, and you can see he's genuinely concerned. Before he can even say anything, Lysatha just gently touches his arm, her gaze super steady and calm. It's not hesitation, it's a silent, "I'm good, let's do this." A soft, playful smile hits his lips, and in a chill voice, he jokes that if he's whack at it, she can totally deck him with something. That night, in the quiet of the cave with only the fire and each other for warmth, Taran and Lysatha sealed the deal, even if it was just for that one night. Through all the whispers, kisses, and touches, they shared something so deep and unforgettable it made the cold and all their fears just melt away. And if you want to know exactly how wild that night got, only the horse vibing in the corner could spill the tea. But lucky for them, that horse is no snitch. Even though their situationship went from 0 to 100 real quick. I'm not even mad about it. I mean, homegirl is in a super high-stress situation. So to me, it totally tracks that she'd act on impulse. Plus, he's under a crazy amount of pressure, too. Especially since he's definitely hiding something. The next day, they get back to the mansion, and Taran walks in carrying Lissa. She looks completely wrecked and a little awkward. But he tells her in this super chill voice that she'll be okay, and that it won't be so intense next time. Blushing hard, she's like totally surprised. "Are you saying there's gonna be asterisk next time?" "Who knows?" He shoots back with this flirty smirk, carrying her to her room. He gently sets her on the bed, telling her to get some rest because she must be wiped. As she's lying there, he backs away and says he's gonna go make dinner. But as he turns to leave, she reaches out and snags his shirt, asking him to wait. She says she needs a favor. "Can you teach me how to for real use a weapon?" She asks, her expression totally serious. He gives her this intense, thoughtful look, before telling her that's not part of their deal. But she argues back, saying this is like a non-negotiable part of their arrangement. For real, if she can defend herself, it makes his job way easier. Not gonna lie, this dude is hiding something. He's like, "And what's in it for me if I teach you?" He asks, completely catching her off guard. Lisa, always ready with a clapback, reminds him that what went down last night wasn't exactly in the contract either. With a smug little smile, he fires back, "That was different. The vibe was right, and we both got what we wanted." Her face flushes, but you can hear the annoyance in her voice when she asks what he wants making. It's crystal clear that money is off the table. He gets this huge, mischievous grin and teases besides money. But then to Lissa's total shock, he just says he wants her to cook for him. "Just one meal is fine as long as it's fire," he says super casually. Still in disbelief, Lissa just stares at him, repeating it like she misheard. "You want me asterisk? To cook for asterisk, you asterisk?" It started in the silence with his breath hot and heavy right next to her ear, whispering Lissa, with this insane raw intensity. The sound was low-key electric, totally matching the steamy vibe of the dream, as he mumbled something else she couldn't quite catch. Whatever it was, it made her just melt, clinging to him in this crazy tight hug, as she breathed his name back, her voice all thick with feels. Wrapped up in him, she'd begged in this shaky, emotional voice. Just say it one more time. Just tell me you love me. And then it hit her. The only thing she wanted in the entire world was to hear him say, I love you. Her eyes snapped open, a total mess of shock and emotion. Waking up from that insane dream, her cough came back hard and she started hacking immediately, cringing at herself. Get a grip, she thought. He's literally only here because of their stupid contract. She had to stop letting herself hope for anything more. Just then, a soft knock on the door, and Taran's voice called out, asking her to come for dinner. When she didn't answer, he called again from the hall. You still passed out in there? Getting seriously worried, he slipped into the room, whispering her name super carefully. Hey, you good? He saw the untouched plate of food he'd made for her, and how flushed she looked, her breathing all shallow. In a tiny, weak voice, she admitted she felt really sick. He touched his hand to her forehead and swore under his breath. She was burning up, no question. How long have you felt like this? He asked, his voice laced with worry. She just mumbled that she wasn't sure, just that she'd been feeling kinda off. He immediately declared he was heading to the village for medicine. No, seriously, don't, she argued, insisting she'd be fine after a couple days of rest. She weakly reached for him, but he was not having it. Nope, you need meds. He promised it'd take a day tops, but she still tried to argue. He took her hand, his expression dead serious. Do you have any idea how dangerous a fever this high is? It could make you go blind, he said, his voice low, or deaf. She was completely stunned, asking if he'd ever actually seen that happen to someone. His eyes got this dark, haunted look as he nodded. Yeah, he said quietly. I have. And with that, he told her he was leaving for the medicine at first light. All through the night, he stayed right by her side, doing everything he could think of to bring the fever down. He even gave her a small piece of ice to suck on for relief. She was so out of it, she asked where he even found ice. Oh, I left some water outside, he said, just in case. It was dawning on her that Taran was literally prepared for anything, and she asked if he was always this on top of everything. He just gave her this tiny, knowing smile in response. She looked him dead in the eye and said, Taran, if I actually die, you can have all my money. He cracked a sad, sarcastic smile and shot back some teasing question. But as she started coughing again, she admitted the legit worried look on his face was making her think this was a huge deal. Taran went quiet, then insisted she'd be fine and that he wasn't worried. She just smiled faintly. Yeah, okay, I don't buy that for a second. I mean, the way he kept changing the cloth on her head proved he was totally freaking out. His face, half covered in shadow, looked incredibly serious. As she drifted, her mind flashed back to how this all started. He'd clocked the pure panic on her face in the kitchen and just knew the girl was a total disaster. He'd smirked at her like, Are you for real? Guess I have to teach you how to cook now, huh? And she'd blushed, admitting she'd literally never cooked in her life. Taran let out this massive sigh like he was so over it, but said he'd teach her no charge. She'd been so hyped, giving him this huge grin. He'd told her to just go pass out while he handled dinner, but paused at the door to warn her without even looking back, not to try and make a run for it. Back in the feverish present, she asked him if any of his other clients had ever died from a fever. His expression turned grim. No, he said, but when I was 10, a nasty plague went through my village. I never caught it, he continued, but it took my mom. Lysa, looking completely exhausted, just held his gaze and asked if he thought with enough time her past could ever feel that distant. Taran's face was a total stone wall, completely unreadable, before he finally answered, yeah, so long as you weren't the one who caused their deaths. Lysatha was totally floored by Taran's answer. Her face went dead serious, and she stared him down like, wait, are you for real telling me you've actually ended someone? The question totally knocked the wind out of him. He went dead silent for a sec, his whole vibe turning dark as he dug through a ton of bad memories for an answer. It made Lysatha instantly regret everything, wondering if she'd just majorly crossed a line. Before she could even trip over an apology, Taran's voice cut through the tension. When I was 14, I was out hunting with some dudes from my village and I accidentally shot an innocent man. Lysatha was just speechless, blinking like her brain just blue-screened. An innocent person? But how? Taran's reply was barely a whisper, just a gust of heavy, painful air. It was a total freak accident. How, though? There's no way that's the whole story. She pushed her voice, a shaky mix of freaked out and needing to know. Taran squeezed his eyes shut, his face twisting up like he was reliving his worst nightmare. He took a ragged breath and just started spilling the entire story. He told her about being on a hunt where a baby bear cub got stuck in some janky old trap which sent its mom into a total rage. She went full-on protective mama bear and charged their group, and everything just exploded into chaos. Some of the guys bailed and the rest just started firing like crazy to get her to back off. We finally scared her away, but when the dust settled, one of the hunters was gone, and it was my shot that did it. Lysatha's heart absolutely shattered for him, and she insisted between shallow breaths that it was so obviously not his fault. She asked if he got in trouble. Taran just nodded slowly, telling her that at just 14 years old, he was basically kicked out of his own village. While he fixed the cool cloth on her head, he explained he had to hustle just to stay alive. But it was beyond rough, and after all that I just got used to being a lone wolf. He gently grazed her cheek with his hand. his voice dropping to a low murmur saying he wanted to keep talking, but her fever was still raging. He told her he absolutely had to bolt to town for medicine, and it'd probably take him a full day. But he made it super clear that she was not to move a muscle while he was gone. She gave him a look and was like, "You better promise you'll hurry back or I swear I'm ghosting you for real this time." He gently covered her eyes with his hand, telling her to get some sleep, then softly asked if the nightmares were still messing with her. The move instantly zapped her back to that crazy, intimate moment in the cave when he'd done the exact same thing while they were together. The memory made her press his hand tighter to her face, a little smile and a huge blush taking over as she told him that, no, the nightmares were gone. As she started to drift off, she couldn't stop thinking how epic it would be if they could just vibe and talk like this again when he got back. The next day, Lysatha woke up in a total haze. She rubbed her eyes, pretty sure she'd been dreaming, but the deets were all a blur. Rolling onto her side, she stared at nothing, and was hit with the sudden realization that she actually low-key missed Taran. She had no clue how long she'd been asleep, and wondered what time it was. Then a loud crash outside the window ripped through the silence, making her bolt upright in bed. A mix of curious and totally freaked out by the sound. She tiptoed to the window, peeked out, and a huge wave of relief washed over her when she saw it was just a chunk of ice that had slid off the roof. Phew. As she watched the snow, she realized she felt way better than yesterday. The fever wasn't completely gone, but it had definitely chilled out. A small smile played on her lips thinking about Taran taking care of her, but her cozy little moment was completely wrecked when she spotted 3 figures in the distance heading straight for the mansion. She ducked behind this curtain instantly, her stomach dropping when she confirmed it was 3 guys, and none of them was Taran. Lysatha slid out of the room like a ninja, making sure every single footstep was dead silent, her brain going a million miles an hour trying to figure out who these guys were and what they wanted. She crept to a spot in the hall where she could see the downstairs area. From her hiding spot, she could see the 3 men talking on the first floor. They were giving off major mercenary, or maybe bounty hunter vibes. They were complaining about the cold, then one of them decided it was the perfect time to call out another dude, Leo, about some money he was owed. Leo, looking super pissed, told the guy to back off, promising he'd get his cash. The first guy clapped back, arguing he deserved way more. I mean, he was the one who actually took out the target. Hearing that from upstairs, Lysatha's eyes went wide with pure terror. A single bead of sweat trickled down her temple. The guy kept whining that to top it all off, the one who got away had seen his face, which he was now calling a massive loose end, so he should get to name his price for the cleanup. Leo just totally blew off his partner's whining with zero patience. He told him to just chill. He turned to the third guy, Tommy, who was digging through a bag, and told him to find them something to drink. Lysatha stayed hidden, listening to every word, completely horrified by what she was hearing. The argument went from 0 to 100 real quick, and the guy who Lysatha now knew was named Klee totally snapped, pulling his weapon and aiming it right at Leo. He was still screaming about the payout he thought was a total joke. It finally clicked. These guys were just violent thugs, and Lysatha's heart was pounding like a drum. She knew she had to find a place to hide like right now before they found her. Okay, so my brain is playing a highlight reel of every horror movie ever, and the vibe is asterisk, not asterisk it. The fear is hitting different, cause I know these dudes aren't here to just swipe my stuff and bounce. Oh my god, the fireplace is still going. I sprint back to the room, gotta kill the flames before the smoke basically sends up a flare saying, I'm hiding upstairs. But before I can even finish that thought, I step right on a busted floorboard and it lets out this super loud crack. In that split second, I go full-on statue, my heart trying to break out of my chest. They totally heard that. Downstairs it goes dead silent. They're just listening. Tommy looks up at the ceiling, calls Leo boss, and is like, yo, I think someone else is in the house. And just like that, their whole vibe switches to a full-on manhunt. One of the guys wrinkles his nose and goes, bro, I smell food and something's burning. That's all he needed to know, someone was definitely here. For a hot second, a wave of relief hits me. Hearing him say that, I'm thinking, okay, thank God they didn't catch the floorboard squeak. But then I hear them decide to split up to find whoever's hiding. My relief lasted 0.5 seconds. I'm completely spiraling, trying to figure out my next move. Running outside is a major no-go. My footprints in the snow would be like a giant neon sign pointing right at me. And going downstairs is basically serving myself up on a silver platter. I clenched my fists, so freaking mad that these idiots just had to show up on the one day Taran isn't here. But I'm not going out like this. My only real shot is back in my room. I start frantically digging through my things, searching for anything to use as a weapon. I grab my revolver, and then it hits me. I've only got 3 bullets. In theory, that's 1 for each of these creeps. This is literally insane, but I'm basically out of options. I remember what Taran showed me the last time I held a gun, and I take my position by the door, just waiting for them to come. I'm so freaked out trying to get my breathing under control, taking these deep breaths while I wait for it all to go down. As sketchy as it is, I've got the perfect hiding spot where I can get the drop on anyone who comes in before they even see me. But I'm trembling, totally terrified. Even though I have to be strong, the real tea is I'm falling apart inside. One of the men yells from downstairs that he's gonna check the 2nd floor. He starts ripping open the other doors with like so much force, making a crazy amount of noise with every single slam. The sound of his footsteps and the doors gets closer and closer, making me even more paranoid, my heart just pounding. Found it! The guy screams to his friends, and my blood runs cold. Whoever lives here is in the second room upstairs, he yells. His boss, all curious, starts making his way up the stairs to see what his guy found. I can hear them completely trashing Taran's room right next door. Every drawer they rip open and every piece of furniture they shove feels like a countdown to something awful in the otherwise dead silent hallway. I don't know if it's the fear or my sickness, but this insane need to cough builds up in my chest. I'm fighting it with everything I've got. But the effort just makes me let out this huge sneeze that echoes through the whole house. I slam a hand over my mouth, totally panicking, but the damage is done. From the next room, I hear one of them say, "Did you hear that? It came from the room next to us." They instantly start sprinting towards my door, their footsteps thundering down the hallway. I'm trying so hard to stay calm, even as my heart goes wild hearing them charge right at me. The guys start rattling the door like absolute psychos trying to break it down. A gunshot explodes as one of them shoots the lock, trying to blow the door open. Outside, they start arguing, trying to decide who should take the next shot at it, since the first one was a total fail. One of them, who has absolutely zero chill, starts pounding on the door, screaming for whoever is inside to open up. I just grip my revolver tighter, feeling the cold metal as I listen to them slam against the wood. Then suddenly the pounding stops when one of the guys sees something outside and tells the others to look. Before they can even process what they're seeing, a single clean shot cracks through the air and hits CLE, the guy who was banging on the door, and he just collapses. The boss starts to make a move, but before he can even draw his weapon, a second shot hits him square in the chest, dropping him instantly. Completely clueless about what's happening, I just hear two heavy thuds on the other side of the door. I slide down the wall, my body giving out as I finally start coughing uncontrollably, silently praying that it's Taran. Footsteps approach the door, and then from the hallway, I hear Taran's voice call my name, thick with worry. As much as I want to run to the door, the sheer relief of hearing him mixed with the adrenaline crash leaves me completely frozen for a moment. He tells me seriously that he's coming in and not to shoot. I just whisper his name, a wave of relief washing over me when I finally see him. And Taran, visibly relaxing now that he knows I'm safe, tells me to stay put and not to come out because he needs to handle all this. And then my blood runs cold. I scream, "Look out behind you!" In pure terror, I throw my hands up to cover my eyes, completely unable to watch what was about to happen. A sick sound of a blade hitting flesh echoes, followed by a heavy thud, like a body hitting the ground. Still frozen, just staring at the floor, Lysatha flinches hard, her voice trembling as she barely whimpers Taran's name. Her head snaps up the second she hears him call back to her. "Don't look, seriously. It's gnarly," he says, his expression full of concern as her eyes fill with tears. The moment she realizes he's okay, she basically launches herself at him, hugging him like she needs to feel that he's real and safe. She's clinging to him for dear life, and with a voice that's still shaking, tells him she's fine. Taran, though, looks worried when he notices she got grime all over her from hugging him. Panicking Lysatha just straight up asks if he's hurt. Taran, playing it cool, reassures her he's good. Apparently the guy's aim was off. She runs her hands all over his arms and chest, needing to feel for herself that he's telling the truth. I mean, he did just take down 3 guys without a single scratch. But the heat still radiating off her skin reminded him that she needed her medicine and that she'd probably been waiting for him, totally stressing for way too long. "I was just wondering the whole time when you were coming back," she says, her voice all choked up, about to cry. When she hears this, she wraps him in another crazy tight hug, like she's trying to sear it into her brain that he was here back in one piece for her. After a few seconds, he gently pulls away, telling her she has to take her medicine. Let the fever break and just chill for a bit while he cleans up this whole mess. Lysatha offers to help him clean, but he's firm, telling her no way, she needs to stay in the room and rest. It would probably be faster if he just did it alone, and besides, he needed her to get better ASAP. He backs away, saying as soon as he's done, he'll be back to clean her room too. And before she could even argue, he shut the door, leaving her by herself. Feeling how warm she was, she finally takes the meds Taran brought. Glancing in one of the mirrors, she's kinda shocked to see how pale and grimy she looks. She gets out of her dirty clothes and heads to the bed to try and sleep while the medicine kicks in. She's out like a light, and her only thought is how much she wishes Taran was there with her. Some time passes while Lysatha just sleeps totally peaceful, and when she wakes up, she looks around. She realizes her dirty clothes are gone, and the red stains in the room have been cleaned up too, figuring Taran must have handled everything, including her clothes, which, not gonna lie, was pretty impressive. She gets out of bed and goes to her bag to find some clean clothes, but then she stops, thinking maybe a bath would be a way better idea right now. Lysatha remembers there's a bathroom on the first floor with hot tubs and probably warm water waiting for her. She wraps herself in a blanket and heads out of the room towards the bathroom, realizing the medicine totally worked since she feels way better now. As she gets close to the bathroom, Lysatha sees a ton of steam coming from the door that's cracked open a little. She peeks in curiously and sees Taran filling the tub with hot water. She's just watching him, totally mesmerized, seeing his torso. Muscles move every time he does something, completely focused on his task. After just watching for a few seconds and realizing he's so in the zone he hasn't even noticed her, Lysatha finally says his name. He smiles when he hears her voice, and without stopping what he's doing, asks if she's feeling better. She thanks him for being so sweet saying that. She's feeling so much better all thanks to him. Lysatha notices her dress from before is in one of the basins. She bends down to grab it, telling Taran that he should take a bath first, since she's just gonna go to the kitchen to wash the dress. Taran gently grabs her by the waist and says, "Whoa, where do you think you're going?" The sudden closeness puts him like dangerously close, making her face totally flush. He's way too close, and she's literally just wrapped in a sheet with nothing on underneath. She quickly explained she was just gonna go wash her clothes. But Taran, sounding a little annoyed, says he ran a bath for her. So like she should totally go first. Our girl claps back that he shouldn't be so worried about her, and that she just needs a super quick shower, especially since, "Just go. The hot water will be good for you. For real, we can't have you getting sick again." He says it all firm, but in a caring way. And somehow that whole bossy but sweet vibe does something to Lysatha, making her blush a little. She just nods, and with a small smile thanks Taran for looking out for her. Checking out the tub, she's like, "Whoa, this thing is massive." While he's putting his shirt on, Taran agrees, explaining he was only gonna fill it up halfway, but he got worried she might catch a cold again, so he totally filled the tub to the brim. She calls out to him before he can bounce, telling him to wait up, and then asks if he wants to hop in with her since the tub is huge. He just stares at her, completely shook by her invite. And the second he realized how that sounded, her face went nuclear, turning crazy red. She was so embarrassed she could barely speak, just mumbling an explanation. "OMG, it was even better than my dream." Lysatha sighed, completely blissed out and snuggling up to Taran. He chuckled, but then his eyes landed on a tiny bruise on her elbow. "Whoa, where'd you get that?" he asked, suddenly looking super concerned. She just giggled. "Probably from our little aquatic adventure earlier." He frowned, looking genuinely bummed. "But I promised I wouldn't hurt you. That makes me a liar." She just shook her head. "Don't even trip. It's not like I told you the whole truth about my dream anyway." And what a dream it was. It all started when he'd looked her dead in the eye, his voice all low and confident, and promised, "Don't worry, I'll make it just as good as your dream." See, her cheeks were on fire, but after everything they'd been through, she had to be real. "Okay, fine. I did dream about you," she finally admitted. Then she dropped the real bomb. "And honestly, the dream version was kinda better than real life." That made him stop dead. He moved closer, his eyes locked on hers. "What was it about?" he murmured, closing the distance between them. "You were so gentle with me," she whispered, from start to finish. He pulled her into his arms, his voice a low rumble. "What else?" She took a shaky breath. You kissed me." And just like that, his lips were on hers. It was electric. A literal spark that set the whole vibe between them on fire. She breathed his name against his mouth as he pulled back just enough to look at her. "So a kiss like this," he said, his thumb tracing her jawline. "Then what?" Her heart went into overdrive. She remembered the next part perfectly. In her dream, he'd whispered, "I love you," in her ear. But there was no way she was telling him that. She'd sound so thirsty. He saw her hesitating, and a smirk played on his lips. "Come on, spill the tea. What happened after the kiss?" He was a pro at teasing, and she was dying. She was convinced he'd think she was totally desperate for a situationship or something. He must have seen the panic in her eyes because his expression softened. "Are you scared to tell me?" he asked, his voice suddenly serious. "You don't have to be. You know that, right? We're past that." But she just stammered, totally losing her cool. That's when he smiled that killer smile and made that promise that led to, well, everything. But how did they even get to talking about dreams? It all started with her finally sliding into the ginormous tub, feeling all kinds of awkward. The second she sat down, he was like, "You always this bundled up for a bath?" She tried to play it cool, explaining the water was crystal clear and it just felt like proper. Then, trying to sound casual, she tilted her head and asked, "Hey, could you maybe do something about that asterisk?" Taran played totally innocent. That, covering her burning face with her hand, she mumbled, "You know, this situation down there." A wicked grin spread across his face. "Oh, that asterisk. Is it bothering you? 'Cause I was getting the vibe you were kinda digging it." Lysatha practically levitated out of the water. "It's not that I don't like it," she stammered, her heart doing a full-on cardio workout. "It's just, this is my first time." "I'm pretty sure you're enjoying it," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I mean, you wouldn't be sitting this close if you weren't, right?" And yeah, he had a point. That's when he changed the subject, totally catching her off guard. "So, how have your dreams been lately?" She was like, "Huh?" He explained that ever since the cave incident, she'd been sleeping like crazy, so he figured he must have made a guest appearance. He had no idea how right he was. This whole thing was her idea after all. She'd asked him to join her, trying to play it off like she was just conserving hot water for the massive tub. "Oh, is that asterisk all?" he'd teased. The blush that exploded across her neck totally gave her away. Seeing it, Taran just smirked and started taking his shirt off, saying, "If that's the reason, then bet, I'm down." The moment he started undressing, Lysatha's brain went offline. She squeezed her eyes shut, her heart trying to escape her chest as he started washing up. "You gonna get in or just stand there and stare all night?" he'd asked, snapping her out of it. But she was totally mesmerized, frozen in place just watching him. He caught her staring. Is this the real reason you invited me? He'd asked, that smirk back in full force. So you could get a free show? She'd stammered some excuse about the wash basin, but low-key she felt a little rejected. It felt like she was the only one catching feelings. Until of course everything changed. Lisa's eyes flutter open, and OMG, she's waking up tangled in Taran's arms. He's already awake, just watching her with the softest smile. Morning, he murmurs, his voice all warm and happy. Before she can even process, he pulls her into a tight hug, grinning like he just won the lottery. He's literally beaming, saying, I honestly can't remember the last time I had a morning this good. He just holds her closer, whispering about how amazing it is to wake up like this. Especially he jokes, since it's freezing outside and this is a better way to save on firewood. Lysatha's face is basically a tomato, but secretly she's living for how warm and safe this feels. Taran totally clocks that she's a little tense, though. He grins and tells her to just chill out, teasing that he feels like he's cuddling a log because she's so stiff. She's completely mortified and tries to play it cool, but it's a total fail. So she just gives up and melts into his arms, finally letting herself relax. Seeing she's still a little shy, he decides to mess with her. With a smirk, he says his muscles are kinda sore from, carrying her last night. He takes her hand and presses it flat against his chest. But how did this even happen? Let's rewind. It all started after this one insane kiss that left them both breathless. The second their lips parted, she just had to say it, dropping the bomb she'd been holding in, you said you loved me. And just like that, Taran's whole flirty vibe vanished. He went dead serious, his eyes turning to ice as he just stared at her in silence. After a beat that felt like forever, he finally spoke, his voice low. Is that what you want from me, Lysatha? For me to love you? She was so stunned, but fire back. Not when you say it like that, like it's some kind of business contract. He just smirked, his cool mask sliding right back into place. And that's when it clicked for her. This was still just a transaction to him. There were zero actual feelings involved, even though she was totally catching them. Pushing that thought away, she got real and asked him to just help her get through the night without nightmares. He got the sly grin and promised he'd make sure she slept very well. And OMG did he deliver. That one night turned into an entire week. They basically used the blizzard as an excuse to get lost in their own little world. They were living in a total honeymoon bubble, just tangled up in each other day and night. It was a vibe she never ever wanted to end. Seriously, sleeping next to Taran, all wrapped up and warm, just started to feel normal. It felt like the one place in the world she was always meant to be. With him, she was happier than she had ever been in her entire life. It was like nothing else mattered. If only they could just stay like this forever. A few more days fly by in a blur of cozy mornings and stolen kisses. They're in their room, a complete mess of limbs and blankets. Taran wakes up first, as always. The second he sees her eyes open, he gives her a soft, good morning. She whispers it back and he pulls her in for a deep hug. With a sweet smile, he says he'll let her rest today. You said that yesterday? She shoots back, her cheeks flushing. And you totally broke your promise. He gets this wicked grin and plays innocent. I have absolutely no memory of that. Then he gets all serious for a sec, realizing they've spent a whole week like this. Licia is completely shook when she realizes an entire week has just disappeared. And even crazier. Ever since she started sleeping next to Taran, the nightmares just stopped. Feeling the warmth radiating off his body, she closes her eyes, totally at peace. She finally gets it. There were no ghosts. It was just her own anxiety messing with her. She starts to slip away, muttering about making breakfast, but he just yanks her right back for a soul-crushing kiss, trapping her in bed. It's like a magnet pulls her to him every single time. He stares at her face, still flushed from their makeout sesh, and says her name so gently it makes her heart skip. Hey, I can't be with you all day tomorrow. She's totally thrown off. Why not? Where are you going? He gets this distant look in his eyes, explaining that the blizzard finally stopped. He figures it's the perfect time to go get another horse. She glances out the window and yup, the snow is completely gone. As he climbs out of bed to get ready, he explains that even though the trip is only one day, he has to prep. So, he says, it'd probably be best if we slept in separate rooms tonight. Instant panic. The fear of the nightmares coming back has her practically begging, can't we just sleep together for one more night? But Taran just shuts her down. Sorry, but that's a no-go. But then Taran's voice goes ice cold and she whips around to see him leveling the rifle right at the guy on the ground. Lysatha is totally bugging out. What are you doing? She yells, but he's not even looking at her, his eyes locked on the target. His voice is flat, no emotion. Get away from him. He cocks the rifle and the sound cuts through the silence. I hope you're not actually thinking of saving him, he says, his face a total blank. We're on the run. We can't afford this. But Lysatha moves like lightning, throwing herself between Taran's rifle and the stranger. Wait, she begs, her voice cracking. He could be innocent. Taran's stare is hard. And he could be a plant. Did you already forget what happened? What makes you so sure he won't screw us over? Even if he is, she argues, refusing to back down. Doing this while he's defenseless? It's just wrong. It's not your call, he says, his voice dangerously low. Get away from him, Lysatha. It's crazy because just 5 minutes ago things were perfect. It all went south right after she finally made that impossible shot. She was literally screaming with joy, totally losing it. Taran, I did it, I actually hit it. But her victory lap ended when she saw it. A figure just collapsed in the snow as a horse bolted. Panic flooded her system. Did I hit him? She took off like a shot, sprinting toward the fallen person, completely tuning out Taran, yelling her name. She found a blonde guy passed out and gasped in relief when she saw he wasn't bleeding. But her mind was racing. Who is this dude? And the only reason she even made that shot was because of Taran. His voice was a low whisper right in her ear. His hand covering hers on the rifle, his body pressed against her back. Now, he'd breathed, and she'd pulled the trigger. The bottle exploded into a million pieces. He'd been in full-on hot teacher mode, showing her how to use the snowy mountains as a backdrop to make the target pop. She'd been running his instructions through her head. Plant your feet, keep your arms tight, eyes locked, breathe slow, hold it. And it's aimed right at the guy on the pavement. Lysatha was totally shook. What are you doing? She asked, but he completely ignored her. His voice was dead flat. Get away from him. She was so determined, staring at the stupid bottle she'd already missed. I don't have time to play around. I need to get this down like yesterday. It felt like a different lifetime, but it was just that morning. He was leaving the warmth of their bed, and she felt that familiar pang of anxiety. He'd felt her vibe turning back with that soft look in his eyes. Hey, he'd promised, you're gonna be okay, I swear. And she knew even with this whole messed up contract situation, she would do it a million times over just to be with him. A sudden cough snaps her back to the present. The guy on the ground is stirring, looking up at her with pained eyes. Help me, he whispers. Lysatha's focus shifts instantly, her voice going soft. It's okay, I'm going to help you. She looks at Taran, her eyes pleading. He lets out a super frustrated sigh and after a tense standoff with himself, finally lowers the rifle. But his jaw is tight with anger. You just blew everything up, he says, his voice dripping with disappointment. Lysatha ignores the dig and tries to help the guy up, struggling with his weight as she starts toward the mansion. Taran, obviously pissed, just yanks the stranger away from her and hauls him over his own shoulder, storming off. She's just stunned by how cold he's being, a terrible thought creeping in. If that guy hadn't woken up, would Taran have actually shot him? She tries to push the awful idea away, following in silence. A little later, back at the mansion, the stranger is feeling way better, thanking them over and over for saving his life. Okay, so things totally exploded. Lysa just snapped, screaming at him, stop acting like you're actually my husband. And Taran, OMG, he stepped right into her personal space, grabbed her wrist and was like, your life is literally in my hands. Or have you forgotten the countless times I've had to save you? She fired back that she's grateful and all, but that just means I'm indebted to you. It doesn't mean you own me or get to control my life. But he wouldn't let go. Instead, he gets this super pained look and says, I have a life too, which left Lysa totally speechless. And before she could even ask what he meant, he grabbed her chin, his voice turning harsh, telling her from now on she'll do exactly what he says. So how did we get here? This whole 5-alarm fire started with 2 little words Taran said to a total stranger, my wife. See this guy they found passed out? Gray woke up and Taran, trying to be slick, introduced Lysa as Liz, my wife. And our girl was not having it. She was seriously fuming, and I'm kinda lost on why she's so salty. Like, your crush calls you his wife. That's prime time for some happy freaking out, right? Taran even called her out on it later, like, why are you losing your mind when we've pretty much been acting like a married couple for days anyway? The tea is piping hot, people. But Lysa was stuck on the lie. She tried to make him see that if Gray starts asking questions, saying she was his sister, would have been way smarter. Taran just clapped back that it'd be even more sus since they look nothing alike. Then they just had this epic death stare contest in total silence. My theory, Taran's just jelly. He pulled the wife card so the cute blonde detective wouldn't even think about making a move on a married woman. It's wild, cause just a little while earlier, Lysa was breathing this huge sigh of relief when the guy Gray Hoflander first woke up. She was just glad he didn't overhear their sketchy conversation. He introduced himself, and Lysa almost spilled her real name before Taran cut her off. That's when Taran dropped the bomb, telling Gray his name was Taran Cartis. He was a hunter and that Liz here was his wife. And get this, Gray's a detective? Lysatha was completely shook, like she'd never met one in real life. Taran, meanwhile, was playing it super cool. He spun this whole story about how he and his wife were just passing through to the port when the insane snowstorm rolled in, then asked if Gray was headed there too. Gray looked totally exhausted, saying he had business in the capital and was overworked. He said when he heard the gunshot, he was so startled he just passed out. He's like, I'm incredibly lucky you two found me, you're such a sweet couple. And Taran just mutters, yeah, asterisk, so asterisk lucky. That we were the ones who found you. He adds, dripping with sarcasm, before asking when Gray plans on heading back to the capital. Gray totally picked up on Taran's weird vibe, but just smiled, saying he'd leave as soon as his horse Harmony got over her freakout from the gunshot and came back. Lysa felt awful and apologized for scaring the horse, but Gray was super sweet about it, saying, Harmony and I have been together forever, I know she'll be back. Taran used that as his cue, pointing out the snow was letting up, and it was a perfect time to find asterisk their asterisk horse and get out of there, hoping Harmony shows up soon. But that fake politeness totally vanished when they were alone. Taran blamed her for the whole mess, and Lyssa fired back that it wasn't 100% her fault. She brought up how he was being so extra about moving that bottle, and he just snapped, "I literally gave you an easy way out of this. But you shut it down." He was basically hinting they should have just left Gray to freeze. And she was horrified, asking, "How can you talk about ending someone's life so casually?" He just gave her this ice-cold stare and flipped it. "I have a question for you, too. How can you be so quick to trust people?" And that question just broke her. She felt this tightness in her chest and whispered, "Because I have you. My heart, y'all." But Taran, still pissed, told her that even with him around, she can't just go trusting every rando. Ouch. That was a direct hit. So she clapped back with heavy sarcasm. "Oh, I'm so sorry for relying on you." This led to him trying to cancel his trip, saying he couldn't leave her alone, which started the whole "you're not my husband" screaming match. But then Gray just drops a truth bomb, saying it's kinda sus they slept in separate rooms last night, especially since they're supposed to be so deeply in love. And just like that, our girl completely freezes. His comment totally hits a nerve. Lysatha, who is literally the worst at hiding her feelings, just glares at him. Her voice is dripping with suspicion when she's like, "And how would you know something so personal?" With that same chill smile, Gray's all, "Whoa, don't get the wrong idea," swearing he wasn't creeping on them or anything. He claims he was just checking on his horse last night, and happened to see 2 fireplaces going in rooms right next to each other. But Lysatha is still fuming, not buying his lame excuse for a second. It all started while they were touring the mansion. Gray was saying that even though her husband was being a total grump, they seemed to have a really solid vibe. Then he casually asks, "So how long have you two been married?" It just tumbled out of her mouth that they got married last year, and this whole trip was for their anniversary. And even as she said it, she was making a mental note to herself. She and Taran had to get their story straight like ASAP in case Gray tried to quiz them separately. He just kept hitting her with question after question about their life together. Lysatha was trying her best to sell the happy couple act, but it was seriously getting to her, mostly because she could feel Gray's stare just picking her apart. He was hiding his inner detective behind this super charming, easygoing personality, but she wasn't fooled. Lysatha just kept on answering, trying to sound as legit and happy as possible. The whole thing was already on shaky ground after that train wreck of a breakfast. The vibe between Taran and Lysatha was so tense you could practically hear the silence screaming. The second she sat down, Taran was already shoving his chair back, muttering something about getting her food on his way to the kitchen, his voice totally flat. Gray, totally picking up on the awkward energy, tried to joke, saying her husband seemed a little off today. Blushing like crazy, she was like, "Yeah, he just gets moody sometimes, he'll be fine." Then Taran came back, plopped a plate in front of her, and told her she really needed to fix her sleep schedule because she's always sleeping in. She mumbled an apology, saying she barely slept, which is why she was so late. "Again!" He shot back, his eyes locking on hers, dead serious. Lysatha just looked away, completely silent. This was right after she almost blew their cover talking about their trip. Gray had asked where they were headed, and she dreamily said they were going to the northern port to see the ocean. But Gray just casually pointed out that the sea is totally frozen over. She was completely shook, asking how he would know that since the area is famous for being warm. With a poker face, Gray clapped back that he was about to ask her the same thing. Like, how would she know it's supposed to be warm? That's when it hit her that this guy was way sharper than he looked. She had to backpedal fast, explaining they'd heard about the whole frozen sea thing from family. But then he totally blindsided her, saying he was literally just at the port of Sylvanas. Turns out he was stuck there for 2 whole months on a job, and was just now heading back to the capital to report in. Lysatha felt a huge wave of relief. Of course he'd know if he was just there. It all traced back to the night before when Taran laid down the law. This whole fake couple act, it's not optional. He made it clear that if she messes up, he won't risk his own neck. He'd just ditch her. Lysatha basically feels like she's his hostage in this whole mess. She has zero power here, so she has no choice but to play along. And as much as that sucks, what hurts more is that the Taran in front of her is a total stranger. He's giving major "I don't know you" energy, not the guy she thought she knew. Still, she just loudly said, "Fine, whatever you say." Taran just gave her this intense glare, still looking pissed even after she agreed. Then he just spun around and stomped to his room. He barely mumbled a "night" before slamming the door, leaving the whole room in a dead, heavy silence. Our girl, completely thrown by this new Taran, just quietly walked to the bed and face planted onto the sheets, feeling totally and completely drained. "This is so messed up," was the last thing she thought before everything just went black. Which brings us back to now with Lysatha seething, because no matter what Gray says, she knows he's way too invested in their love life for it to be a coincidence. Clapped back like, "Bro, why are you so obsessed with the couple you literally just met?" Gray just threw up his hands like, "My bad." But she kept serving major side-eye, explaining how they had a little spat about cash last night, which is why they crashed in separate rooms, NBD. But for real, Gray's questions were giving off majorly sus vibes, like this was way more than just some friendly chit-chat. And our girl's internal alarm bells started screaming. This dude wasn't just visiting. He was on a full-on recon mission. Like, wake up and smell the creep, Lyssia. This guy is basically playing Sherlock Holmes, and I bet he's already got a whole file on you. So they keep walking, and thank the heavens he finally chilled with the 21 questions. Gray starts hyping up the mansion, going on about how massive it is. Then he casually asks if she's checked out every room, and her mind instantly flashes to that nightmare fuel. Interrogation room. She's like, yeah, hard pass on mentioning that to Mr. Nosy. Luckily, he was too busy geeking out over the architecture to notice she was totally bugging out. He was rambling about how it must be packed with sketchy stuff since it used to be owned by some dude who smuggled, questionable goods asterisk. Realizing this topic was also a big yikes, Licia decided it was time for a subject change like ASAP. So she throws a question about Harmony out there, hoping to distract him with some cute pet talk. And low-key, it actually worked for a second. The whole vibe shifted and they started chatting about Harmony's little rebellious streak of ghosting her owner. Then bam! They stop, and Gray just drops this bomb whispering 287 steps from one end of the first floor to the other. She just gives him this, what are you on look, totally confused. Gray then explains that both the first and second floors are just as ridiculously huge on the inside as they look from the outside. He admits that since the crib is so massive and belonged to some weirdo billionaire, he was kinda hoping to stumble upon a secret room. He's like, in a place this extra you just no asterisk, there are hidden passages and secret chambers everywhere. 'Cause old rich dudes love to keep their skeletons and their treasure on lockdown. Lysatha, now officially intrigued, asks if he's hunting for something specific, which would explain his whole secret room obsession. Gray finally spills some tea saying he'd heard whispers about this place. Apparently the old owners used to partake in some very special herbal remedies. Our girl just cuts to the chase. So was that stuff actually in the mansion? Gray's like, oh, for sure, which is exactly why this place was mobbed after the old guy kicked the bucket. But the craziest part, he says, is this one legendary thing that's never been found. And get this, he calls it the truth powder. Tons of people swear it's real and have been hunting for it for years with zero luck. It's some seriously messed up stuff that basically hacks your brain, making you spill all your secrets. Like you literally can't lie. Plus it basically freezes your body, leaving you totally helpless for a while. Not creepy at all, right? He straight up admits it would be epic to find it, because apparently there's a huge market for that kind of party favor. And with that, he could make a stupid amount of money. Lysatha, looking concerned AF, asks if he's cool with the fact that selling it means someone's gonna use it for some seriously evil stuff. But Gray doesn't even blink. He's just like, a guy's gotta secure the bag. And besides, haters gonna hate, villains gonna vil. They finally get to the door to Gray's room and Licia is ready to bounce. He gives her this super cryptic smile and is like, later, adding that he hopes things with her and the hubby work out. Then Gray drops this bomb. You should try talking to him more. Guys with jobs like his, they're basically allergic to feelings. He goes on saying they build these huge walls to hide what they're really feeling, probably because their job is one giant stress fest. Lysatha is just like, OMG, that's so true. And then she asks all hesitant how she's supposed to crack that code. Gray just calmly says she has to make him feel 100% safe, like creating a vibe where he can finally drop the tough guy act. He says that's the only way he'll ever really open up. Then he adds that she has to give him the one thing he wants more than anything, because that's the key to making him feel safe enough to show her his true self. Licia's brain just short-circuits trying to figure out what Taran could possibly want. So far, he'd never asked for anything major. All she could remember were the basic requests. Like, stay safe and out of the drama. Tell me if you're scared or sick. And make me a sandwich. It all felt so transactional, like she was just paying him back for saving her life and stuff. None of it felt like something he actually wanted for himself. Licia thanks him for the relationship coaching, tells Gray she's got a jet, and he ducks into his room. The door clicks shut, leaving Licia alone in the hallway, her mind doing gymnastics. The question echoed in her head on a loop. What does Taran really want? What's the one thing he's secretly desperate for? Dead set on figuring this out, Lysatha took a deep breath and went to her room. She sat down, completely zoning everything out as she side-eyed all her stuff. Like, what was her most valuable possession? That engagement ring from Prince Jade and the stack of cash she'd saved up to pay Taran when this whole gig was over. Besides that, everything else was basically just clothes and random junk. Of all the things she owned, was there anything he would actually vibe with? And out of all of it, Lysatha wondered if there was literally anything that would make Taran even look twice something she could actually give him. And then it hit her. She walked to Taran's room, her heart pounding like a drum solo. And when she got to his door, she froze for a hot second. Gray must be out on a job. This was her shot, the perfect chance to talk to Taran one-on-one without his shadow around. She knocked softly, asking if she could come in, but got total radio silence until she heard a click and the door swung open. You good? Taran asked, rolling up to the doorway. The moment she told him Gray was gone, the nice guy act vanished. Taran's whole vibe shifted. His eyes narrowed and his voice got this sharp, dangerous edge as he asked in a dead tone what she wanted. She reached out her fingers, just barely brushing his hand, trying to get him to chill. With this super sincere look, she said she just wanted to talk for a minute. He let out this huge sigh and then he let Lysatha into his room. The second she was inside, Lysatha tried to break the tension, pointing out little things in the room to start a conversation, but Taran shut her down instantly. His expression was completely serious as he told her to just get to the point. I came to say I'm sorry for how I acted the other day, Lysatha said. Taran clapped back. So you're finally admitting you messed up? No, she replied, not backing down. I don't think I was wrong. Taran cracked this sarcastic smirk, looking her up and down. For real? Then what the hell are you even apologizing for, huh? Lysatha put a hand over her heart, her voice steady as she admitted she was sorry for trying to force her own opinions on him. She gets that they come from completely different worlds and that she shouldn't have expected him to see things her way. Taran looking so over it, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he stared at her. So you're saying you came all the way here just to tell me you finally downloaded my entire moral compass? Lysatha looked him dead in the eye, her voice firm, saying she sees him as a guy who makes smart plays, who doesn't risk it all on stupid bets and who isn't afraid to make the hard calls when he has to. And if a plan goes sideways even when he's pissed, he just finds another angle. And because of all that, you were mad at me yesterday for blowing up your spot and leaving you to clean up this mess. Because at the end of the day, I'm still your client. And you can't just ghost me or Mr. Hofflander that easily now. Even though he knew she wasn't entirely wrong, Taran gave a sarcastic grin, saying it wasn't that deep. He said he could easily take care of that detective any time, but he figured he'd just watch for a bit since he had time to kill. Lyssa was shook that Taran was treating this whole life or death thing like it was no big deal, but she pushed that feeling down, reminding herself that they were just built different. Lysatha kept her eyes locked on Taran, totally serious, saying that anyway, that was her read on him, and she had to know if she was wrong. Taran leaned back, a crooked smile playing on his lips, and said they could just say she totally nailed it. Taran then closed the space between them, his steps slow, his gaze so intense it was practically burning, while his low voice was a straight-up challenge. He asked what her next move was now that she finally gets him. She explained that step one was apologizing to show she understood just how serious this whole situation was. After that, she promised him she'd start playing smarter, following his lead and trying to think like him. In a voice that was soft but firm, Lysatha asked him not to talk about making someone disappear so casually. As she said it, her hand drifted up to Taran's face, her touch super light, like she was trying to calm the storm raging inside him. Taran's eyes went wide, completely blindsided by her touch. For just a second, his entire tough guy facade just cracked, and almost like he couldn't stop them. The words slipped out in a low, curious whisper. He just breathed out, "What?" "When you're backed into a corner, please don't make erasing people your go-to move," she said, looking right into his soul. "You know better than anyone that sometimes it's the only option." He shot back. Lysatha said she knew Taran was a broker living in a high-stakes world, and that sometimes he had no choice, but she asked him to just let her in, saying that if they worked together, they could find another way out. Taran just smirked and asked how exactly she thought she could do that. Lysatha knew it was impossible to ever really know someone, and she wasn't even sure if that's what he wanted, but she had to take her shot. "Let's just dip from here. Together." Lysatha said, her voice filled with a crazy amount of conviction. The answer she landed on was simple. There was something valuable. The only card she had left to play was herself, and she slammed it on the table. Taran just stared, his brain totally buffering before finally getting out, "Us together." "Yeah," she whispered, her gaze so intense it could start a fire. "I need you with me. We're going to the Duchy of Landis next door." Taran choked on air like, "Lysatha, do you even hear yourself right now?" He tried to give her a major reality check, telling her this whole thing was a level of complicated she couldn't even imagine. So that night, things got intense. They totally gave in to each other, not as Lysatha and Taran, but as Liz and Cartis living out the fantasy for one single night. But even after he basically curb-stomped her feelings, Lysatha couldn't shake it. Every kiss, every touch felt way too real, like it was packed with actual emotion. Like, how could Taran even pretend it was all just an act? His kisses felt like the kind you only give someone you're actually truly in love with. After their night together, he held her in this super gentle hug for what felt like forever. Lyssa was just thinking, he's never held me this long or this close, or this genuinely before. So how did we even get here? It all blew up when she finally looked him dead in the eye and confessed the real reason she was so messed up. She told him she couldn't even bring herself to hate him after everything, and that their time together had totally changed her. Then she dropped the L-bomb. She was completely in love with him. Lysatha just put it all out there, saying she needs him and wants to be with him no matter who he is. She was like, "Together we can face anything and actually grow." You could see he was totally shaken by the confession, but my dude immediately tried to shut it all down, going into full-on defense mode. He hits her with the, "Yo, did you forget about our contract?" He said the whole point was to get what they wanted without anyone catching feelings. Taran told her he was being 100% honest, he was not running away with her. He said they had at most 10 more days together before his job was done. Before he could even finish, a heartbroken Lysatha cut him off, saying, "If that's the deal, then she's not leaving. She's calling the whole escape plan off." She was like, "If you're not coming, we can use the money for something else." Because honestly, the only thing she really cared about was staying with him. Taran just gave her this ice-cold glare, looking seriously ticked off. His eyes were like frozen daggers, as he asked why she was so determined to ruin her own life. And Lyssa just completely falls apart, her voice trembling as she confesses, "It's because I love you." She said that's why she wanted to see him genuinely happy, not just for money. With a totally detached look, Taran looked right through her and said flat out, "You're lying. You don't actually love me." Just brutal. Lyssa tried to argue, her voice full of pain, insisting that she did. But Taran just snapped back that no, she didn't love him. Not for real. He flashed back to seeing the look in her eyes when he drew on Gray. He said she wasn't just scared, she was terrified of him. And that fear had always been there. Taran admitted he was glad she'd buried that fear so they could have good moments, but yesterday proved it was still there. He told her with this heartbreaking sadness, "You don't love me, you just want to protect her." When Lyssa tried to argue that was insane, Taran cut her off, telling her she was wrong, and this wasn't what he wanted. The mask was officially back on. Which is wild, because this whole emotional dumpster fire started with her making the absolute messiest pitch ever. Okay, fam, you gotta hear this. She just dove right in, saying with his fee and the prince's engagement ring, they'd be totally set for a few years. Taran just raised an eyebrow, staring her down. He asked if she was for real wanting them to live together. Lyssa, clinging to his shirt, said it was a no-brainer and they could just be roommates, nothing official. Taran gave her a look like she was completely unhinged, asking if she was really willing to go that far, just because she couldn't stand his job of taking out targets. That's when she spilled that seeing him almost take out Gray made her physically sick. She felt so betrayed, and the thought of it just completely wrecked her. So after all that drama, Taran forces a smile and reminds her she'd do anything for him. Then he says what he wants is simple for her to asterisk, not asterisk love him. He gets super close, and in this low, intense voice reminds her the contract is still active. So while they're at the mansion, he'll give her anything she wants. As he slowly tugs at her shirt, he says that if she wants a husband, he'll play that role for her. He's practically whispering, asking her to stop messing with his plans. But the way he says it, it's so obvious he's not talking about his escape plan. Deep down, he's really begging her to stop making him fall for her. I mean, what an absolute disaster of a conversation, right? But I swear the story gets so much better and has a happy ending, so you gotta trust the process. How could he claim it was all just an act after a night like that? To Lysatha, it felt like the kind of love you can't fake no matter how hard you try. So Lysatha's all tangled up in his arms when she breathes his name. Taran's eyes crack open, but he just crushes her closer, his voice all rough and sleepy, begging her to please just stop being so real. Lysatha, totally clueless, just blinks at him and is like, "Wait, I thought you hated anything fake." His face is just a mess of pain as he tells her, yeah, he does, and that's literally why he's asking her to stop. He's basically pleading with her, trying to hide how he feels, but it hits so different seeing her be so freaking honest about her own feelings. The next morning, they're still in the same bed when they wake up. Lysatha is dead silent, just staring at the ceiling, her brain replaying every single second of last night. Every word, every little touch, and every one of Taran's insane mixed signals is sending her into a total spiral, caught between having hope and having major doubts. And even though Taran's always up at the crack of dawn, she calls his name a few times and gets crickets. He's still totally out of it. Kinda worried, she gently presses her hand to his forehead and cheek, checking if he's burning up. When she realizes he's fine, she slides out of bed and gets ready super quietly, thinking this is her one shot to do something cute for him. When Taran finally rolls out of bed and wanders into the kitchen, he walks into a scene he was not expecting at all. Lysatha's already in there attempting to cook for them, going for this whole domestic goddess vibe. She kinda sheepishly explains she's making that tomato soup he taught her. She admits she totally blanked on the right order for the ingredients, but she's like 99% sure it's gonna be fire anyway. Taran, just leaning against the doorframe, can already see this soup is about to be an epic fail. Seeing her doing literally everything backwards and ignoring the recipe, Taran strolls over and with this unbelievably patient voice, starts explaining that the order is like super important, because if you mess that up, the whole thing just won't slap. Lysatha looks down at her tomato tragedy completely defeated and asks if she should just, scrap it and start over. Taran lets out this little sarcastic laugh and says, nah, don't toss it. If the soup ends up being trash, they can just serve it to the detective. Lysatha can totally read his tone. Taran is still not vibing with Gray. Like at all. Then Taran's whole mood flips, and he gives her this dead serious look, asking if she's for real into Gray, even knowing he's a walking red flag. Lysatha admits she's not really sweating Gray, but she's super curious why Taran is so sus of him. Taran lays it out for her, saying that from his point of view, the detective and that wolf that attacked her are basically the same level of threat. They might look different, but they're both totally capable of hurting her and blowing up everything he has planned. With this worried look, Lysatha tells him she gets it, and she knows how much their contract means to him. But he just steamrolls right over the moment, completely killing the vibe, and asks why she's suddenly playing chef. He straight up asks if this is all some little show for Gray. Looking absolutely crushed, Lysatha says no, she wanted to do something nice for him. Lysatha reminds Taran that when he taught her how to use that weapon, she promised she'd cook for him, and this was her, making good on that promise. Seeing how wrecked she is, Taran's entire vibe just melts. He gently takes the knife from her hands and asks if he can take over. He tells her to watch carefully, that he'll show her how to make the soup again. He explains that this way she'll totally be able to nail it on her own next time. OMG. The back and forth with these two is just everything. He starts cooking with this crazy intense focus, every move clean and perfect, while Lysatha just watches completely mesmerized, soaking up every little detail without saying a word. The whole mood between them starts to chill out as Taran cooks, dropping little tips and tricks for her, breaking down every step so she can do it by herself later. Lysatha realizes Gray is MIA, guessing he must have gone to find his horse, and she's low-key thrilled they have the house to themselves. Later that day, we catch up with Lysatha dragging herself up the stairs, looking completely drained after a whole day of chores. The second she gets to the top, she slams right into Gray. She's totally shook because she was sure he'd bounced hours ago. Lysatha says she hasn't seen him at all, and asks if he spent the entire day just exploring the third floor. Gray's eyes totally light up, and he's like, "You bet he found some seriously juicy stuff." He says it really feels like all the important secrets in this mansion are hidden up on that floor. Lysatha immediately flashes back to those trashed rooms she saw up there and gets a major case of the creeps. She tries to play it off, though, and asks Gray what he found that was so wild. Still totally buzzing, Gray says he found a ton of things so much that he'd even want to snag some of it for himself. But then his whole face just changes and his voice drops, getting super intense. He pauses for a sec, then says there's something he has to ask her. Gray steps right up into her personal space, his expression dead serious, and asks her straight up if she's ever been on the third floor. When Lysatha says yes, she has Gray just drills his eyes into her, asking if she went into every single room. He keeps pushing, asking if she noticed anything weird in any of the rooms on the third floor. And boom, she remembers it, that creepy scratching noise from when she was exploring. The memory hits her like a truck, making her feel hella unsafe, and the pure terror is written all over her face. The whole vibe was already so sketchy, but the second Gray saw the doubt on her face, he shot her this look like he knew exactly what she was thinking. An OMG that just sent her into a total panic. She started stumbling over her words, desperate to escape the mega cringe situation. Every instinct was screaming at her to back away from Gray to get some space, so she took a step back. But Gray, completely missing the memo, stepped right with her, invading her bubble. And then, classic movie moment, Lysatha's foot missed a stair and she just went down. Hard. Gray was shook for a hot sec, but his reflexes kicked in. He lunged to catch her, but her momentum threw him off balance too. His only thought was to protect her, so he yanked her into a hug, twisting so he'd take the hit as they crashed to the floor in a tangled mess. He was up in a flash, his face all creased with worry. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. She was still seeing stars, but mumbled that she was fine. He slid an arm around her, gently helping her up. And that's the exact moment Taran rounded the corner. The instant he saw them tangled up like that, his face went from 0 to 100 pure rage. In a voice that could literally freeze fire, he demanded, "What the hell is going on here?" Gray, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole, tried to explain that she just slipped. But Taran wasn't buying it, not for a second. The death glare he shot Gray was absolutely lethal. Taran's eyes locked on Lysatha, searching her face. "Is that what happened?" She was like, "Yes, for real," insisting it was a total accident and Gray was just being a good dude. Drowning in a sea of jealousy, Taran sneered, "Guess you were so busy having a fun little chat you forgot how to walk." The burn was real. Lysatha opened her mouth to argue, but then she caught the vibe. This wasn't about her falling. This was Taran looking for any excuse to yeet Gray from the mansion for good. Gray tried to apologize, making it crystal clear he had zero interest in Taran's wife, but he might as well have been talking to a wall. Taran just bulldozed past him, slamming his shoulders into Gray's. He turned to Lysatha, swept her off her feet and into his arms, then shot a final glacial look at Gray. "I don't care about the horse," he said, his voice flat and final. "Be gone by morning." Then he carried Lysatha away without a single look back, leaving Gray standing there in the hall, stunned into silence. But as they walked away, the weirdest thing happened. Gray started laughing. Like a full-on "this is hilarious" laugh. Taran whipped his head around, his eyes shooting daggers. Lysatha was just completely floored by his psycho reaction. Still chuckling, Gray put his hands up. "My bad," he said. "Probably not the best time for that." Taran and Lysatha just stared, totally bewildered. Then Gray's eyes found Lysatha's again. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice suddenly serious. "But low-key, I wish I could have been the one to actually save you." Lysatha was so confused. It felt like he was speaking in code, that his words meant so much more than just the fall, but she couldn't figure it out. Then Gray's whole vibe shifted back to serious. "I'll be leaving first thing," he said. "Would it be too much to ask for you to see me off?" Lysatha's mind immediately jumped to Harmony, her missing horse. But Gray just gave her this reassuring look. "Don't worry, she'll come back. I'll call for her all night if I have to." After that, Taran carried her the rest of the way to their room in the most intense, awkward silence ever. Not one single word. He gently set her on the bed, his expression dead serious. "I'm so disappointed you let him get that close to you," he said. "I've told you over and over to be careful around him." Pissed, Lysatha clapped back. "Even if he is sketchy, you had no right to just kick him out like that." "My decision is final," Taran snapped. Then his voice dropped into this commanding tone. "Now get undressed. I need to make sure you're not hurt." But Lysatha was still fuming and totally blew him off, still going off about how he treated Gray, and how he's suddenly acting like the concerned husband after giving her the cold shoulder yesterday. And then in a move no one saw coming, Taran dropped to his knees by the bed. He was literally begging her. "Please, Lysatha, let me check. The thought of you being hurt is driving me insane." "I just need to know you're okay," he whispered, his hand reaching out to gently touch her leg. In a small, broken voice, Lysatha begged him, "Stop. Stop pretending you care, you're just torturing me." And in that one awful moment, the truth hit her like a truck. Even after he pushed her away, she was still hopelessly, stupidly in love with him. He just looked at her, his own heart in his eyes, and admitted, "I am. I'm exactly what you think I am, a complete jerk." The next morning, Lysatha woke up and saw Taran right there. He'd stayed with her, watching over her all night. She got out of bed, a new steely resolve hardening inside her. She had to make a move. Something so big, so dramatic, it would force Taran to finally admit the truth he was trying so hard to bury. She was about to drop a bomb that would make it impossible for him to hide any longer. Lysatha peeks out the window, sighing in relief as she sees Harmony's back. But low-key something feels super sus, like it's all a little too perfect. She has to remind herself that the second Gray bounces, this whole fake marriage act is totally over. She figures the only way to clear her head is to hit the shooting range and get back to something that feels even a little bit normal. At practice, Taran is all up in her business, watching her every move and giving her these super intense pointers. And for the first time, Lysatha is like completely in the zone. When Taran finally admits she's getting better, Lysatha gets all cocky, setting up a new bottle and saying maybe she'll just become a hunter. But Taran immediately shuts that down, telling her it's a hard no. He says it doesn't matter how sick her aim is. She's missing that stone-cold instinct you need to actually do the job. They start trading insults, going back and forth until Taran says something that really gets under her skin. Totally pissed, Lysatha whips around and just obliterates the bottle in one flawless shot. Taran is shook for a second, but then he gets mad, realizing she just wasted a full bottle of perfectly good booze. Wasting the whole thing. Lyssa just claps back that it's not like they were gonna pop it open together anyway, so what's the big deal? That's when Taran grabs her wrist. He tells her to quit messing around and that practice is done. Lysatha, totally over it, asks why he's so bent out of shape about it when he doesn't even drink wine. But he snaps back that he does. He was saving it to drink by himself, after this whole mess was over. Lysatha just scoffs, saying drinking alone is kinda pathetic. He just gives her this look, like he's reading her mind, and asks if the real reason she's so ticked off is because she actually wanted to drink it with him. And right on cue, Gray clears his throat, completely shattering the moment. He says he's about to dip and just wanted to say goodbye. He's like, "My bad if I caused any drama for you two." Then he adds that for real, despite all the chaos, he actually had a pretty chill time at the mansion. After saying his goodbyes, Gray hops on his horse and starts to leave, but Lysatha suddenly screams for him to wait and just bolts after him. Gray pulls his horse to a stop, looking totally confused as Lysatha runs up completely out of breath. Still gasping for air, Lysatha opens her bag and says she has something for him before he goes. She then pulls out a book and hands it to Gray. She explains it's about herbs, and she figured it might be useful for him. Gray starts flipping through it, and with a genuine smile, he thanks her for the thoughtful gift. Then he pulls out a little snow globe, telling Lysatha he wanted to give her something back. As she's staring at the globe, totally captivated, Gray points out that since it's a sphere, it'll just roll away if she doesn't have a stand for it. She gets all excited, asking how she's supposed to make it stay put. But Gray's whole vibe turns serious, almost mysterious, and he tells her she doesn't need a stand. She can just let it be. Lyssa gives him a completely blank look, admitting she has literally zero idea what he's talking about. That's when Gray mentions that the third floor has 287 steps from one end to the other, same as the rest. He admits he was kinda hoping it would be different, but nope. And that's when it hits Lasia, remembering Gray's whole mission to find the truth powder, and she realizes that's why he was exploring the third floor. Gray admits that he bailed on finding it, but he says that Lysatha del Arman, has to be the one to find it, dropping the massive bombshell that he's known her real identity this entire time. Lisa is just frozen, completely stunned, and her face says it all. He tells her there's no point in even trying to deny it. The clues were literally everywhere. Between their talks and just watching her, he connected all the dots. He says he didn't even need to see her face. It all just clicked. Freaking out, she asks if he's going to out her now that he's heading to the capital. Gray tells her the contract he had with the revolutionaries is officially over and he's just filing his final report, but there's no reason for her name to be in it. Lysatha is completely floored to find out he works for the revolutionaries. He explains that he spent the last 2 months at Stevens Port IDing nobles, trying to skip town by ship, and that the revolutionaries paid him a crazy amount of money for every single noble he caught. But he tells her not to sweat it because he's not turning her in. After all, she's the one who saved his life, and seeing how she's managed to survive this long, he's convinced there's still hope for her. Lyssa's entire body goes rigid when he says hope, especially after everything he just spilled. The thought is just tearing her up inside. If the sea hadn't frozen over, she would have run right to that port and been caught by the very guy standing in front of her. Gray then gives Lysatha a final respectful goodbye, wishing her luck and promising that no matter where he is, he'll be rooting for her. As he rides away, Lysatha just stands there watching him fade into the distance. Taran walks over and asks what that was all about, but she just blows it off, saying they were just talking about some old book on herbs. As they watch Gray ride off, Taran casually says that if Lyssa didn't have the gun, they could have at least jacked another horse. Lyssa looks at him horrified and is like, "Are you seriously saying you would have just shot him?" Taran doesn't even blink and just says yes. Furious, Lysatha's hand tightens on the rifle slung over her shoulder. And then she rips the gun off her back and aims it right at him. So he literally shoves me into the room, and I'm about to totally go off on him. Taran's heart just dropped when he saw the rifle. He realized she wasn't bluffing, she was actually gonna shoot. Then bam! The sound just ripped through the silence, making Harmony totally freak out and bolt. The horse just vanished over the horizon. Taran had yanked the gun up literally a millisecond before she fired, forcing the shot wide. Now he was just staring at Lysatha completely and utterly shook. His mind was just like blue screening, trying to process what she just did. The kickback from the rifle sent her stumbling back the stock, smacking her right in the stomach, making her hack and double over. Taran was still losing his mind. He just exploded, screaming, "What is wrong with you? You would have actually shot him if I didn't stop you." "Oh, you think so?" She shot back, a sly little smirk playing on her lips as she stood up and reached for his face. "Babe, chill," she said, her voice way too calm. "You're literally dripping sweat." He slapped her hand away, so done with her games. But she just gave him this soft smile and told him that he was just fronting this whole time. That deep down he was totally into her. Taran tried to deny it like no way, but Lysatha was radiating pure confidence. She pointed out that if he really didn't care, he never would have stopped her. She knew he couldn't just stand there and watch her ice some rando. He immediately shot back. "You're dead wrong." Lysatha just casually stretched and then invaded his personal bubble, her voice dead serious. "If you really don't care, then prove it. Shoot me." And yeah, that totally set him off. He snatched the rifle out of her hands and started to raise it. Lysatha didn't even flinch, just watched him silent. She knew he was so blindingly mad that he might actually do it. He leveled the gun, aiming it right at her, his face a mask of pure fury. But through all the drama she saw it, his arm was shaking just a little. A total tell that he was secretly terrified. Proof he could never go through with it. With a look of pure agony, Taran squeezed his eyes shut and pulled the trigger. Asterisk click. Asterisk nothing. He just stood there stunned, and then this massive wave of relief washed over him when he realized the gun was empty, looking smug. Lysatha finally broke the silence. "I knew it was empty. I just had to fib a little." All she wanted was for him to be real with himself for once. She needed to see the pure terror in his eyes at the thought of actually hurting her. Taran lowered the rifle, his mind still spinning. But Lysatha, she was just standing there, cool as a cucumber. She smiled. "I knew you loved me too," she said. They just stared at each other for what felt like forever. Then Taran grabbed her wrist. "Come with me," he ordered, his voice low and intense. Back at the room, he basically kicked the door open and half pushed her inside. It was definitely not gentle. Lysatha shot him a look that was 100%, "What the actual heck is your problem?" But before she could even say anything, he just closed the distance and crashed his lips onto hers. It wasn't sweet. It was a desperate, angry kiss packed with all the chaotic feelings swirling inside him. They just gave into it, but on a whole other level. Taran was rough, almost wild, like every touch was fueled by the hurricane of emotions he couldn't control anymore. It was desire, rage, and pure raw vulnerability all mixed together. Even though he already knew he had to ask if she loved him, Lysatha's answer was simple. "Duh, just like you love me." And just like that, her words smashed through every wall he'd ever built around his heart, making him finally face the truth. For the first time ever, Lysatha saw the real vulnerable Taran he kept hidden from the world. The one he even hid from himself. The next morning, Lysatha woke up and Taran was already getting dressed. "Where are you off to?" she mumbled. He said the snow had finally stopped, and he was heading to an inn nearby to snag them a horse. He walked to the door, saying they needed to bounce while they had daylight and that he'd be back by noon the next day max. "Taran, wait," Lysatha called out. "What I said. I meant it." He turned back, his expression serious as he asked, "The part about us leaving, about a life together?" Taran grabbed his coat, but this time he didn't look at her. He just turned to go, saying in this super controlled voice that he'd keep it in mind. She just watched him walk away, a knot of worry in her stomach with zero clue what was coming next. As she started picking up her clothes, trying to get her head straight, something fell out of the pile. A small snow globe rolled across the floorboards. She snatched it up, breathing a sigh of relief that it was still in one piece. After she got dressed, she went to the window to watch Taran ride off. Lysatha pressed her hand to the freezing glass, her eyes fixed on his shrinking figure. She was seriously worried about him, trying to shove down all the bad vibes that were totally stressing her out. She figured the best thing to do was stay busy until he got back. So she spent hours cooking, cleaning, even sewing, anything to keep her anxious brain quiet. But I mean, you can only clean a giant empty mansion so much before you get bored out of your mind. She started messing around, rolling the little snow globe under the bed, watching the tiny flakes swirl inside. Gray's last words were suddenly haunting her, sending a legit shiver down her spine. The whole thing was super sus, making her wonder what he really meant. And that globe? Was he trying to say that he was hiding a secret just like her? Gray's whole thing about the third floor is living rent-free in her head. Like a secret room. Seriously, it's gotta be up there. I can feel it. She's replaying everything he said, trying to solve his little riddle. But the math ain't mathing. If all 3 floors are clones, where would you even hide a room? So my brain says no way. But my gut says Gray wasn't capping. The way he was hyping up the third floor, like it was the only place that mattered. And how this truth dust was some epic loot. Like, why spill all that tea for nothing? And then OMG, it hits her. Wait, was he talking about that gnarly torture room, duh? Something called truth dust would totally vibe in a place like that. She has to know, like right now. So she bolts straight for that creepy as heck room on the third floor. She creeps in, weapon up, ready to pop off if something jumps out, even if she's just being extra and it's nothing. She plops the revolver and the globe down and starts scoping out every single corner. But she's getting zilch, and honestly, it's starting to get on her nerves. After like a full minute of searching, something hits her foot and she almost has a heart attack. But it's just the snow globe rolling up to say hi. As she goes to grab it, it slips and she accidentally gives it a little tap. But then whoa, it rolls right back at her. Okay, that's sus. Now she's totally invested. It's not just rolling, it's booking it. Too fast, too smooth. That ain't gravity. She puts it down again, watching it like it's the season finale. It does the same thing. Every single time. And that's when she knows the floor's tilted. It's so low-key you'd miss it, but it's all wrong. This is not normal. She's out of there in a sec, using the globe like a ghost hunting device all over the third floor. She sets it down, watches it roll, and it all starts to make sense. Sometimes it goes faster, sometimes slower, but it always goes the same way. The floor is 100% jacked up. She realizes that like half of the entire third floor is on a slant. So naturally, she grabs this gnarly-looking medieval mace and starts dragging it down the hall. The globe didn't move an inch on the first or second floors, which means the third floor is the only one that's messed up. And since it was just on one side, Lysatha knows. Bet. There's a secret space, sandwiched between the second and third floors on the east side. She's putting it all together now. The entrance has got to be in the last room on the hall. Fully committed, Lysatha just yeets that mace with all her might into the wall of the last room. The crash echoes through the entire freaking mansion. Splinters go flying everywhere. She just keeps swinging until a hole finally busts open. And with zero hesitation, Lysatha climbs right on through. Inside, a skinny staircase leads up. And then she sees it fresh footprints. Total giveaway. Someone was here like literally minutes ago. Then she spots a lantern still loaded with oil. Oh yeah, someone was definitely here. A shiver goes down her spine, but she grips her revolver tighter, her brain going a million miles an hour. Could it be Taran? The thought pops into her head, but she's like, nah, no way. That's when she hears a soft scraping noise right above her. It's faint, like the sound of someone dragging themselves across the floor, and it instantly gives her the creeps. Her knuckles turn white on the gun, her heart is about to pound out of her chest. But Lysatha isn't a coward. She takes a deep breath, gets her game face on, and climbs toward the noise. When she walks into the room, she's shook. It's way bigger than she imagined. She steps in totally bug-eyed, and her foot bumps something. She looks down and sees a sack full of some kind of fine white powder. Is this it? The truth of powder Gray was talking about? As she's staring, a cold chill crawls up her neck, and a scratchy, weak whisper comes from right behind her. Please, help me. She whips the lantern around, pointing the light where the voice came from. It's a guy, and he's seriously messed up trying to drag himself across the floor. Lysatha is just frozen. What is someone doing here? And why do they look like they went 10 rounds with a monster? Hearing how weak he sounds, she immediately drops down next to him. She's all worried, asking who he is, if he can even move. In the shaky lantern light, his tired face turns to her, and he just breathes out her name, Lysatha. Her heart literally stops. She scoots back, pure shock on her face. How do you know my name? She stutters. Taran Cartis. The guy chokes out every word of battle. Hearing that name, Lysatha's whole world just glitches. It feels like she's falling. I'm the broker, he says, his voice all shaky. The one you hired. Taran's just chilling, taking it all in with this little smile, telling Lyssa the spread she made looks totally fire, especially the tomato soup. He gets this playful look like, for real though, did you actually follow the recipe this time? Lyssa just gives him a smirk. Just try it. He takes a sip and his eyes literally close for a sec like he's in heaven. A huge grin takes over his face. Okay, this is bomb, he says, and Lyssa's practically glowing. She laughs, telling him she had to use every last thing in the fridge to pull it off. He nods. Good to know. I'll restock for whoever stays here next. And just like that, Lyssa's smile completely vanishes. The next people, she asks, her voice suddenly ice cold. Her eyes narrow. Wait a sec. You're not coming with me, are you? He finally looks at her and admits he's only going as far as the port of San. After that, she's solo. Taran grabs his glass, chugging water like he's dying of thirst. You've changed, Taran. Lyssa says, her voice flat. I feel like you're a completely different person from the guy I met. He actually looks interested. Oh yeah, what was your first impression of me? She doesn't miss a beat. I thought you were a bad guy. A bad guy, he repeats like it's the funniest thing he's ever heard. Yeah, she fires back. You didn't give a crap that I was totally terrified. You just acted like I didn't exist. He looks genuinely confused. When did I ever do that? Lyssa reminds him of the first few nights, how she was too freaked out by the mansion's creepy noises to even sleep. Taran scoffs. I literally offered to let you crash in my room. Lissa's voice drips with sarcasm. Oh, right. Because I was totally gonna take you up on that when I didn't trust you at all. He argues it was a way better plan than wandering around in a blizzard and almost becoming wolf chow. Lissa just sighs. That's completely different. If a wolf got me, she explains, there was a tiny chance you might actually grow a conscience and save me. But if it was you coming after me, there'd be nobody to help. He stares her down. I'm pretty sure a wolf would have left you alone if you'd just stayed in my room. She leans in, locking eyes with him. You really believe that? He hesitates. No. A slow, triumphant smile spreads across her face. See? Then she gets up and comes back with a bottle of wine, slamming it down between them. Let's have a drink. She starts pouring him a glass, and he's watching her like she's about to pull a knife. The vibe is super sus. I'm just giving you what you wanted, she says sweetly. You said we should drink on our last day. Taran looks baffled. It's way too early to call it our last day. We still have like 3 more days till we hit the port. Nope, Lissa says, and this seriously chilling smile creeps onto her face. This asterisk is our last day together. He glares at her, his voice dead serious. And why is that what did you do put something in the food? Lissa's smile just gets wider. Yep. Taran's face goes pale. He's totally shook. Are you joking? He asks, but she just slowly shakes her head no. He glares, grabs the wine glass and chucks it, thinking that's where the poison was. Why are you suddenly doing this? He yells, but then it hits him. A crazy, unbearable thirst takes over, and he starts frantically chugging his water again. Lissa just watches a quiet, knowing smirk on her face. Hey, want to hear a funny story? She asks, like they're just hanging out. It's a good one, I think you'll like it. He just glares, trying to breathe. I'll pass. But she keeps going anyway. Turns out there really was a ghost in this mansion. This whole bet was a setup from the start, wasn't it? A game I was never supposed to win. This entire mansion was your personal trap, she says, her voice low and steady, and I lost the second I walked in the door. He tries to interrupt, his voice strained. The ghost story was just a joke, Lissa. There's no ghost. She cuts him off instantly. Oh, there is, she says with 100% certainty. She leans forward, her eyes boring into his. And this morning in the stables, when I ran into your arms and you kissed me back like you actually meant it, that was the moment I almost fell for it. I almost forgot I saw you standing there when you were supposed to be dead. Lissa gives him one last final look. The ghost in this mansion is totally real. No cap. I'm looking right at him. So Phantom the real asterisk one is just staring her down, trying to look all tough. But then it clicks. Oh snap, he totally spaced. Lysatha didn't even touch her tomato soup. That's where she stashed the goods. He tries to get up, but his body's like, nah, we're good here. He's completely bricked, and Lysatha's just looming over him, her eyes giving major ice queen. She's all calm, like, it's not poison chill. Just a little something to make you spill the tea. So he's just stuck there, basically a human statue, and can barely even look at her. Lysatha leans in. Her gaze is like locked on target, and she just drops it. Are you Phantom? He's totally wrecked. His voice is barely a whisper, but the confession just starts pouring out. He spills that it all kicked off with a letter about a new gig. The mission was basic: take out Brant, the leader's kid. From that second on, he was in full planning mode, mapping out every single move. Then totally out of the blue, his client wires him a fat stack of cash with a note basically saying, congrats, job's done. He's like, what? He was getting paid like he'd already iced Brant, but he hadn't even finished the job. Then the rumors start flying that Phantom was the one who did the deed. That just made him furious, cause my guy has a code: he never takes credit for a hit he didn't make. It was the first L he'd taken in his whole career, and even worse, someone totally stole his kill. But it wasn't just about getting even. He knew he had to be smart, cause the revolution's leader would be on his tail, thinking he was the one who murked his son even though he was innocent. So just as he was about to ghost the kingdom for good, another contract drops. The target, Lysatha del Arman, the youngest daughter of some count who lost it all in the revolution. He couldn't help but wonder, why her out of everyone? And why hire the dude they think just offed your son to do it? The whole thing was screaming it's a trap. But with zero proof, it was all just a vibe. In the end, his curiosity won and he took the job. He found out about Lysatha's escape plan and made sure he got to the meetup spot first. That's when he jumped Taran Cartis. After he put him on ice, he just chilled in the mansion, took his place, and played it super cool so nobody would get sus. The real Taran was a super quiet, reserved dude, so Phantom had to grill him for every little piece of info to sell the act to Lysatha, including all the deets about her. And while looking for a spot to stash the real Taran, he found the truth serum. Yep, the exact same stuff that in a wild plot twist Lysatha was currently using on him. Then like it was scripted, Lysatha shows up at the mansion. He was legit shocked she made it in one piece, something he totally hadn't planned for after all the chaos. He admits she's a total knockout. Even when she tried to hide that fire hair, you just couldn't look away. And her eyes, dude, he said they were like watching a whole sunset. But that first day, they were just full of fear and major suspicion. Honestly, her whole vibe just knocked him off his game. She had that main character energy that even a pro like him couldn't just ignore. He starts thinking like, what if they'd met some other way? And before he knew it, hearing her call him Taran, low-key, started to feel right. He was vibing with it. He was actually starting to dig their talks and just hanging out with her, even if it meant living this whole Taran lie. But being trapped in the mansion was making her paranoid, especially hearing the real Taran's muffled screams every night. And when he saw how bad it was freaking her out, he stopped the interrogations. He just couldn't do that to her anymore. All he wanted was to see her smile again. Plus, he needed to figure her out to get to the bottom of the revolutionary leader's real plan. That's kind of why he invited her to his room one night, hoping to build some trust and get her to open up. But she shut him down hard and he realized he was coming on too strong and decided to pump the brakes. Then one night he brought her some water and found her passed out, but she was crying in her sleep, whispering for someone to help her. He was about to wake her up, but then he heard her whisper, "Taran," and he just froze. He took it as a sign that deep down she was starting to trust him, even if she didn't know it. But psych, he totally misread the room. Instead of getting closer, Lysatha just dipped into a blizzard, completely bugging out. But he was too curious to let it go, so he went after her. He found her in the middle of the storm, surrounded by a pack of hungry wolves. And in that moment, he knew like 100% that Lysatha was no part of some trap from the revolution's leader. No cap. So he made a choice. He was saving her. And while carrying her through that blizzard, all he could think was, why would she just peace out into a storm instead of talking to me? By the time they found a cave, she was an absolute icicle. He knew there was only one move left. He had to use his own body heat to stop her from turning into a popsicle. And right there in that cave, they had their first real moment. Lysatha still super weak spills that she only took out Brant because he was getting way too handsy. It was self-defense. So get this, the whole situation for Phantom was a total mess from the jump. The head honcho of the revolution basically gave him a hall pass to get payback on the dude who jacked his target, and as a bonus to settle a personal score for the boss's son. But then there was her asterisk. Lysatha. She was just so cluelessly sweet, totally pure. She was freaking out that people were throwing shade at her for literally just defending herself, trapped in a loop of gnarly nightmares from all the drama. So Phantom just slammed the brakes on the entire mission. He had to be her knight in shining armor to help her fight off the night terrors and pull her out of the darkness that was trying to swallow her whole every single night. And honestly, she totally wrecked his whole system. He suddenly found himself like asterisk wanting to protect her, which was a total trip. He'd always been convinced he was an absolute train wreck at the whole caring about people thing. It was like Lysatha just hacked his entire operating system, rebooting him as someone he never thought he could be. The second he heard some goons had stormed the mansion while he was gone, his stomach literally hit the floor. He was spiraling, wishing so bad he'd been there to keep her safe. And even though he desperately didn't want her caught in his web, Lysatha just ran right into his arms. And man, the vibe from that hug, it was straight up electric. It was everything. But that was also the exact moment a seriously messed up thought crashed his party. He was living a complete lie with her. No matter how tight they got, Lysatha had zero clue who he really was. He even thought about just spilling the tea, ghosting the mission, and just being with her. If she'd even want him, Avi. Like, could Lysatha ever vibe with the real him? But deep down he knew he was playing himself. He was a professional ghost, a shadow with way too much ink staining his soul. He had absolutely no right to drag a girl like Lysatha down into his chaotic, messy world. Then it hit him, keeping her close was 100% selfish. All about what he wanted without a single thought for the insane amount of baggage he'd be dumping on her. Knowing he couldn't just bail on his path, he decided to just soak it all in, cherishing every single second he had left with her. Before the mission was a wrap. Just vibing in the moment with her before it all came crashing down. But he caught on real quick that he wasn't the only one catching feels. The warmth and the love. The vibe Lysatha was giving him wasn't for Phantom, it was for his cover, Taran Cartis. And that for real got on his last nerve. So naturally he decided to start messing with her just for the fun of it. Stealing kisses and dropping lines just to watch her blush like crazy. It was his super twisted, messed up way of punishing her for not seeing the real Phantom hiding underneath. All while trying to gaslight himself into believing that deep down, it was Phantom she was really crushing on. When she finally told him she loved him, his heart did a backflip, but at the same time he knew it was a total fairy tale. A life with Phantom would be a living nightmare for her. Still, every time he held her, every time they kissed, it was insane. It was like he was finally whole and that empty pit in his stomach just vanished. He'd get lost in daydreams about a future with her, a future he knew was completely impossible. He started thinking like, yo, what if I just bounced from this shadow life? Could we actually be happy? Could we just hit reset, just dip on all this? Just me and Lysatha? Lysatha just listens to his entire story, dumped totally silent, her face a complete blank. Taran spills everything, how the revolutionary leader has a personal vendetta against her, and even if he let her live, the big boss would just send more assassins until one of them finally got the job done. That's why at first he thought it would be a mercy for him to be the one to do it, and make it quick instead of letting her live her life constantly looking over her shoulder. But when he choked, totally unable to take out Grey all because of her, he realized just how deep under his skin Lysatha had gotten. He thought he'd built these epic, impenetrable walls around his heart for his own good, and for hers, but he found out real fast how wrong he was. The second she said she loved him, and was ready to risk it all to be with him, Phantom felt the full weight of those same walls just turn to dust. It absolutely wrecked him, knowing the guy she loved was a complete fabrication. He was terrified that Lysatha had fallen for a Phantom in more ways than one, just an illusion he'd cooked up. But at that point, they were way past the point of no return. The only play he could think of was to push her away, hoping she'd somehow fall out of love with him. But the absolute last thing he ever wanted was to shatter her heart. It wasn't even about finishing the mission anymore. He couldn't figure out if his feelings were just a massive ego trip, or if they were the real deal. But Licia, she saw right through his whole act. And that's when reality hit him like a truck if he didn't end her story, and soon his own was about to be cancelled. Maybe it's already too late, he whispers, snapping out of the memory. So you chose to end me? Lysatha asks, her eyes locked on his. He struggles to get up, his body feeling like it's made of lead, and mutters that every logical part of his brain is screaming at him to just finish it. A bitter laugh escapes him, the pain all over his face as he admits, it's not that simple. When I told you I loved you, you must have been dying laughing on the inside, Lysatha says, her voice practically dripping with betrayal. This whole time I was the only one being real, Lysatha says, looking completely heartbroken. Through tears, she tells him her feelings were 100% genuine, while he was just acting out a script, and that his endgame was always just to delete her from the picture. He breathes her name, his voice thick with emotion, and tells her that on the day he made his move, he knew it was game over for him too. Because he knew if they kept going, he would completely lose himself, and become the man he was pretending to be. Beyond the tidal wave of relief that she was still alive, he had a massive epiphany. His life as Phantom was over, cancelled, done. So he just drops this bomb on her like, I'm done. This whole assassin thing is over. And Lysatha, who's a total wreck, is like, is it because of me? Because you couldn't actually do it. He looks her dead in the eye and basically admits he's totally down bad for her. He's like, no, it's because I've completely fallen for you. I can't kill you. I'd rather just ditch this mission completely. The dude sounds so heartbroken, and hearing him say that just makes her start ugly crying even harder. It finally clicks that the whole vibe they had going on at the mansion wasn't just some act. Well, maybe not entirely an act, but now she's questioning how much of it was 100% legit. Her heart is literally shattering because she has all these feelings for him, but at the same time, she's also just majorly freaked out and feels completely played. She's thinking, if I could just delete all the sketchy memories, maybe I'd know what was real. But even she knows it's not that easy. Like, which memories would she even ditch? She's wondering if she could ever actually be happy and for real love the Phantom after all this insanity. So she gives him this ice-cold stare and says she's erasing it all. But for real, could she ever find happiness with him after everything? Just as she turns to leave, he begs her for one last favor, looking like he just crawled out of a desert. He just asks for a glass of water before she ghosts him. He looks so wrecked she figures he can't pull any stunts, so she grabs a wine glass for him, classy, and brings it over. He even makes some sarcastic crack about her choice of glassware. He's so weak she has to help him drink, but then his eyes get this intense predatory look. He snatches the glass from her hand and it shatters everywhere. Lysatha is so done. She just bolts from the dining room, totally drowning in feels. The next scene, she's on a horse galloping away from the mansion, tears streaming down her face with one thought on repeat. It was a curse. The Phantom's curse. And fam, that's where we're leaving it. I hope you were living for that drama. This story is insane, right? I'm so here for all the twists and the angst. NGL, some of it felt a little rushed, but I still think it's a solid 10 out of 10 story. For real though, drop a comment and spill the tea. Did you guess Taran was the Phantom from the jump? Or were you totally shook? Alright, quick spoiler alert. He absolutely chases her. Now that my boy has finally caught feelings, there is zero chance he's just letting her go. The story is already finished, and it does have a happy ending, so don't even stress. So yeah, deep down everyone's just a softie looking for love. And that's our whole ride through Winterwolf up to chapter 31, which is a wrap on season 1. I can't wait to see you in the next one. And hey, if you felt this vibe, make sure you smash that subscribe button to stay in the